Okay, people. So today I'm joined by Michael Caissie.
Casey.
Casey.
Yeah, you were
Sorry.
close. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. Yeah.
Michael Caissie, who is the writer and director of No Tears in Hell. Michael, thank you for stopping by the pod. Really appreciate your time. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. I really appreciate it. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't doing too bad, and then I watched your film, right? And I should, you know what I mean, let people understand that that's not because the film is bad, right? The film
Yeah.
is really good, but it's unsettling as fuck, yo.
Yeah. I can accept that response. Yeah.
Like, man, like this was such a, and I think the what people might not know is this is based on real events, right? So you're watching the film and it's just, it's crazy, it's unsettling, right? But you can
Yeah.
imagine you can imagine this happening after everything we understand of the world now, all the information that we've got since the internet and just, you know,
Yeah.
but knowing that it is actually based on real events just adds another layer of, oh boy, to the whole thing.
Right.
So, how did this kind of cross your path?
Um, the story by credit is Alexander. He's actually executive producer on the film as well. So
Hmm.
he and Michael Tadros Jr., who's the other executive producer, approached me, and Alex was the one that had the story. He said, I have this true story, this serial killer from Russia in the 90s. Really want to do, there hasn't been a movie that I know of that's been done. Do you want to take a, I was going to say, do you want to take a stab at it? But that's a terrible pun and it's not intentional. But I said, sure, my background traditionally is horror and I'd done, serial killer stuff before, nothing on this spectrum in terms of the level of the horrors involved with it. But yeah, so I started doing some research, and Alex was like, do the research. Here's the stuff I have. Go at it. Then they kind of gave me, free reign to go and run with the story. So I tried to stick with um, as much facts as I could. I mean, there is some creative liberties that were taken for narrative purposes and things like
Hmm.
that. Full disclosure, um, he would actually rape his victims, and I just couldn't find a way. I didn't want to make a movie where there was all this rape and stuff like that, so I had to kind of come up with another solution, which I won't run it for the audience, but you probably figured out what that other solution was. So that
Yeah.
part was a creative liberty. But yeah, I tried to chronologically. I tried to keep the true aspects of necessarily victims and having it be based on a true story gave me the ability to, and the rest of the cast and crew to kind of lean into the horrors that you witnessed watching it. So it kind of, if I was something that just came out of my mind, I would be really concerned if I was sitting there having these things. But yeah, those were, I did the research, and then obviously no one was in the room with these events, so I had to kind of put the pieces together from a narrative perspective. And so that's how it came about. Alex came up with this concept, and I believe he had just come from a trip to Alaska, and there was a small town called Whittier where we shot in. So I think that kind of we wanted to Americanize it, so that was the setting. So Alex kind of brought these pieces, and then I just kind of ran with it from there.
Right, right. And how did you kind of cross paths with Alex?
I knew Michael Tadros Jr., the other executive producer, for a few years, and we just kind of tried to find a project to work on together. And I think I had just checked in with him, and we were just talking, and he was like, you know what, I think I have something for you. So Alex, I met Alex through Mike. That's the connection there. And then yeah, Alex and I hit it off. This was a really interesting process because I didn't get any script notes. I didn't get any film notes from any of the other producers, and so it was kind of like, here's the story, here's what I want to shoot. here's the shots, and they're like, sure, here's the way to go do it. Here's where you're going to go shoot it. So it was very creatively. It was a very smooth shoot in terms of like trying to tell the story that I wanted to tell. The actual telling, the actual writing, and the actual filming was incredibly difficult because of the content and how real we tried to make it. So that was actually really difficult. Even from starting to write the screenplay, I had to keep taking breaks, and it was tough. I have young children too, so like when I first started writing horror, I was single and had no kids, and it was a heck of a lot easier. And then once I became a dad, I was like just sitting here like heartbroken writing this stuff and trying to stay true to it and really lean into what makes this movie tick is that being to that uncomfortable place. And so that's the story of kind of how it started, if you will.
Right. Yeah. I think that is the big thing when dealing with real events, right? Because a lot of films say this is based on real events, and then you do a little research and you find out that I remember, I think it was it was definitely the Tetris movie, but then also the Blackberry movie, where everything seems to take place in a matter of months.
Yeah.
But then when you look into it, happened over like, years.
Yeah, years, right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just like I think when you watch something based on real events, you understand that things get shifted around, right? And a lot of times they'll even invent characters or merge people together and all of this kind of different things. So it's just you expect a little bit of liberty, but it's always interesting how much someone has kept it, as fact,
Yeah, I try to do that. I think we did merge, like the killer's sister was somewhat involved, but there really wasn't a lot of information about her. And so I just stuck with the mom because there's more research. That's the other thing. This happened in the 90s in Russia. So like there wasn't a lot of information to find, even in this day and age. And it's obviously not something that people are bragging about. That was the other part of this. I didn't want to go into this movie and glorify this killer. I wanted to tell the story and really make him a three-dimensional character and kind of come to a place of making him a real person instead of this kind of boogeyman. And I really wanted to lean into the notion that these monsters are created, not necessarily born, because I really believe that, and so that's part of the process. But yeah, other than that, like I said, the chronological order of some of like how he picked his victims and who was his victims, and the last victim, and all of that was based on. Sorry, I have a wild cat here that's trying to get into this podcast. Apparently, he's going nuts over here. Totally chill, and then as soon as you start rolling, so if you see me doing this, that's just me trying to fend off this off our sibling. So yeah, but to your point, yeah, it was hard to find that fine line between like because it's not a documentary, I don't pretend to say that every single thing is factual in there, and you do have to try and find that fine line between what really happened and be true to the story, but also you are trying to tell a narrative. I am trying to tell a story. I am trying to make a movie here, so there is a little bit of that and connective tissues. And, there isn't a lot of information about the police that were trying to find him, so the detective aspect, that was all kind of put together to put that of the narrative. So yeah, and then the characters I had some fun with. Obviously fun is a terrible word to say in this, but names and stuff are changed. Obviously.
Yeah, but I think that's fair, right? And I think the big thing with this is, when dealing with the police, you're not making them saints. So there's times when you'll watch something and someone is saying all the right things, like, I don't believe in inequality and I stand, and you're just like, wait, how would you know any of that? Right? How would you know they said those things? And really, when we look at history, I don't think that person said any of those things. So it's just like you didn't try and force any bullshit into your characters, which I think is always refreshing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think especially with the police. I mean, in the real life story, it took them forever to find this killer. They actually at one point thought he was still locked up in an insane asylum. So like, he had done this. There's a reference at the beginning of the film where he says, "I did it again" to his mom. That was in reference because when he was 18, he had. I don't think he killed her, but he had like kidnapped and started his MO, if you will, with the girlfriend he was dating at the time. And then
Mm,
they locked him up. They put him in an asylum, and because of like this is pre-internet and pre. You see this a lot too, like in serial killer documentaries and stuff from like the Night Stalker and all those other ones where it's before police started to connect with other police and other like FBI and see all that kind of thing. So he fell through the cracks, and if it
yeah,
wasn't for that leaking, there's a part with a maintenance man. That,
yeah.
that part really happened in regards to I don't know how the maintenance man going to the door. Obviously, I
Mm,
creatively made that part, but the leak and things like that. That is actually how this came to an end. So it wasn't like this great police work brought it to not to bash the police here. I'm sure they did the best that they could. But I really leaned into like the runaway things too, like the statistics of runaways, and particularly in the United States. So I thought that was an opportunity to speak to this kind of forgotten, piece of our culture and society where these poor runaways are just and he says it in the thing and the mom says it that they're not going to be noticed if they're gone, and that there is some truth to that. So that was another part is I wanted to, even though this is a really harsh serial killer movie, there is this opportunity to speak to the other horrors of the aspects of like these runaways and homeless population that society has kind of pushed aside, forgotten that they're actually human beings. And I think that was what I tried to lean into with this detective in regards to the amount of missing children every year, and the one police officer saying like, I've seen this all the time. These aren't people, and kind of dehumanizing them. So we see
mm.
that as a society today. We see that every day. We see that. So that was an opportunity for me to kind of speak to that too, while living in this kind of genre film, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising, right? Because firstly, I remember at work we did an event in Vancouver, and my friend, she was like booking hotels, and she's like, "I've got this great deal," and I'm like, "Awesome! I haven't booked my hotel yet." So we booked this hotel, and I'm walking with her to it because like after the we put on this conference for a week, and then after that they're just like, yeah, spend as much time as you want, we'll pay for the return ticket. So everyone was just like, cool. So everyone spent some days, you know what I mean? So we then moved to a different hotel, and we're walking, and we just everything is great in Vancouver, and then you hit this one street. I
Mm,
forget the name of the street, but oh my days. It was like you start walking down and you see some homeless people. Then
mm,
you see a few, people doing drugs. Then you see people like playing with themselves, urinating, just like
yeah,
having sex, and it just got worse and worse and worse as we're going down this street. And you're just like, this is crazy.
yeah,
But it's all kind of confined to this one area. So you know that people are just like, as long as it's there, it's out of
right,
sight, right? It's
yeah,
out of mind. So it's
yeah.
just like, if any of these people disappeared,
No one
no
would know.
one is giving a fuck,
Yeah,
right? And I remember in the UK, it was, I think, gosh, I think it was in 2019, or it may have been the first year of the pandemic. I forget now. But two prostitutes got murdered
well,
and a school teacher got murdered. And like they discovered these murders like within a week of each other.
mm,
No one talked about the prostitutes.
of
They
course,
only talked about the teacher,
yeah,
right? And so it's just like, you know what I mean? It's the level of attention these things get given, right? It's
yeah,
the fact that certain people in life are looked at as worthwhile, and others are just like, eh. you're garbage. We don't really care.
Yeah, I mean that was Jack the Ripper, was
Mm,
prostitutes right there. I mean there's and you mentioned Canada earlier. They call it the Highway of Tears, where they think there's one, possibly more than one serial killer that's been targeting indigenous people up there, and nothing's being done because of they're the indigenous people.
oof,
They're not white. They're so these poor
mm,
women, mostly young women, are getting picked up hitchhiking. Because it's usually tied to. You had also mentioned it in Vancouver. It's tied to poverty, right? So
yeah.
these are like kind of the forgotten people, and I think that's something that's always stuck with me too. Is you know, uh, like you said, it wasn't until that teacher was missing that, and it's the same thing in No Tears in Hell. It isn't until these two girls that are more well-to-do and not homeless, and it was a mistake that he made. And the mother says to this, like, these people are going to start looking for these girls rather than these other homeless people that you have been picking off. So it's a sad part of society, but it's like I said, it's something I've tried to speak to within the constructs of this story. It's
Mm.
important, I think, to at the very least. I'm not sitting on a soapbox here and saying but it is something that I think if some awareness could be raised in regards to that, I think it's not a bad thing for sure.
Oh, for sure. Most definitely.
Yeah,
And I think to try and tell it any other way is just so would be so dishonest because
absolutely.
that's that's just the truth. And as you said, you know what I mean? It's been throughout history, Jack the Ripper onwards. Like it's just one of those things. And I'm sure even before Jack the Ripper, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
it was just the the poor people were, I mean, just when you look at feudal times and stuff
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
kings would go to a town and take a baker's daughter and be like, oh, I'm having her tonight. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
get
Yep.
things like that. So it's just one of these things that are just horrible about society.
Very true. Very true. It's the horrors inside of the horrors, right? I mean, like the serial killer aspect is horrifying enough, but if you start to look at the fact that picking off people that aren't really recognized as people, it just takes it to a whole nother level of depravity.
Yeah, I think that is the thing about this film. It's the layers of like depravity that we are seeing
Yeah.
because you think, and I love the fact we get these little flashbacks, right? So you think that you're putting this together and you're like, okay, so yeah, he started because of this and bum, 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 and this led to this and bum, bum. And then, like, coming towards the end, we see there's two incidences that you just be like, oh man,
Yeah.
that's definitely, and it's kind of like it feels like he was pushed into something in one of them as well, and you're just like, oh boy. But it's not until, as I say, close to the end that you see this and you're just like, because you've seen so much stuff leading up to that point,
Yeah.
that then those things you're just like, damn it, you know like with structuring this, how you know how was it kind of planting those breadcrumbs, like being able to lay it out in a way that you weren't, well, this is it from the first minute, like, and doing it in a way that would keep everyone engaged? How was that process for you?
Yeah. One of the biggest challenges when Alex first approached me was like, how do I make a movie that people will sit and watch? That's actually, like I keep talking about narrative. It's if I were to just sit there and play out the horrible things that this man did, there's not a story there either. There's only two ways to go. I'm either glorifying him and kind of trying to make him like this Dexter or American Psycho Patrick Bateman, where it's like this cool serial killer, and I certainly didn't want to do that because I don't think that about this man at all. Or you just go out and start making stuff up, and so I kind of was like, I wanted to approach it as like a literary aspect, like what's a literary device that'll help drive this story, and that's where the voiceover comes in.
Mm.
And I did a ton of research. This was before AI and Chat GDP and all that stuff. So all of that information about cannibalism and just serial killers in general and all those quotes was so much. I mean, again, luckily I have the internet, so I'm not going to the library like when I was a kid and going to the reference section and sitting there for hours doing it that way. But I was sitting there on the internet, and I knew I wanted to kind of tell. So I kind of approached it from a writing perspective of how do I unpack this? How do I use a device that kind of gets us? I wanted to tell it from his perspective in some aspects. I think that's kind of where the voiceover kind of ties it together. And then the flashbacks, I said this earlier, it's like I really think that these kind of monsters are created. They're not born this way, or maybe they are born this way, and then the environment pushes them, like you said earlier, into going into these directions. So that was a creative liberty. I don't know if the mom did that stuff with the dad, and I don't know if the dad did that stuff with him. There were some weird things when I was doing research, like he slept in the same bed with his mom until he was like 12, according to some of the stuff that So I'm kind of thinking there's got to be something there, and so there was definitely some things that were off, and then again, so I wanted to unpack it so that it wasn't just like murder, 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 death, 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 torture porn. There had to be more to it there. So I was like, how do I elevate this? And it's kind of how I approach any script, especially in the horror genre. It's like, how do I do the genre, be true to the genre itself, to the people that are going to watch this, because it is, it is a film, it is a form of entertainment, while telling the story. And I think some of the pieces were like, all right, let me do some really interesting voiceover. Let me do the journal, the writing aspect, because that made sense and tied it together. The quote at the end, the very last thing he says about the smile, that was actually a quote that he had. So I think I kind of started to see that and kind of acted backwards. So it was like, okay, so this guy has some really twisted things going on here, but there's also an articulate aspect to it too. So let me do it that way. I've never heard the man speak. I don't know how educated he is in terms of that way. So I think that was a way to kind of make it. I wanted to make a film that was true to the serial killer genre, but also put my own fingerprints on it and try and elevate it. And I think that kind of helped in terms of all that voiceover narration and, like you said, the flashbacks and kind of a non-linear storytelling technique, while also wrapping it around these really hard and horrific deaths that are really hard to watch. And we had a hard time filming. I mean, there were, and I've said this, I've been open about this from the beginning. Cast and crew were walking away from the monitor in tears when we were filming this, and there was a moment that I had to actually go into the restroom and just take a break mentally, because I know it's fake. I wrote it. I'm directing it, and one of the things I said to myself, there's a point when you're watching these scenes unpack when you're filming it, and you get so uncomfortable, even though it's fake, because it's just terrible to watch. And when I wanted to say cut, I said to myself, I went in with this mindset, putting the director hat on at that time, was like, when I want to say cut, I'm not going to say cut. I'm going to let it go a little further, and to the point where I was so uncomfortable. And then I said cut, and I think it really ended up giving us these performances and these moments where, I mean, like I said, it was uncomfortable to write, it was uncomfortable to film, and I'm sure it's incredibly uncomfortable to watch. But that's what I was aiming for, and just that kind of fly on the wall element of like almost realism, to the point where it's like, should I even be watching this? Because there's this weird part of people that are into serial killer things where we're fascinated by it as long as we're sitting there in the safety of our couch or in the movie theater. We don't want to participate. We don't want to be the victim. We certainly don't want to be the killer. But there is this notion of like, what makes these people tick, and why are we so drawn to that side of humanity? And it's I think there's something there. You see it, from the Dahmer thing on Netflix. Jack the Ripper has been this thing for years and years and years, and people are just so fascinated by the Night Stalker, all these killers. So I don't really want to lean into that, and I'm full disclosure, I'm fascinated by it. Again, I don't want to be a part of it as a victim. I don't want to be a killer, but I do want to be that kind of fly on the wall and research it, and just kind of curiosity of just why, what's going on, how did this happen, and there's a lot that goes into that. So that's kind of what I leaned into.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, right? Because whenever a documentary about any of these people come out, it does blockbuster numbers, right?
Yeah,
It's number one on the Nielsen and whatever list. You know,
yeah,
people just, it's like a moth to a flame. People love that stuff. And I'm baffled, right? It's never been my thing. I can't really, yeah, because I just think, man, this is just so crazy that and then you just get frustrated because
right.
it's you're reading about it, and like a lot of times, you know, the police had an opportunity and they don't do anything, or you know, because of the people that are getting killed, they're not doing anything or care, and so that just becomes infuriating. So this whole thing a lot of the time, and I think also people make crazy assumptions a lot of times when doing this thing, like, oh well, obviously this happened and that's why, and blah blah blah, and I'm just like, hey, sometimes people are just pieces of shit,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And I
100%.
think it's like, you know, they found that gene where people have they discovered people have a propensity to alcoholism.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, they've discovered this gene, right? And I think there's probably a similar thing with this. And not so much a gene, but it's like there's some people that should not take psychedelics,
Yes.
right? Where that the wall between reality and the abyss is crazy thin.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I think it's people that will like beat up their partners, people that will murder, people that will do that. Wall is so thin that the minute it breaks, then that's it, right? Because you see that if
yeah,
someone beats up their wife, their girlfriend, whatever, they're gonna do, and they do it once, they'll do it again.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's just like if you know, get a hint of, you know, killing someone, then it just sets you on this path that we
Yeah.
see. And I think that possibly is the thing. And you can keep someone away from it, right? But
It's there.
if they get too close, then it's over,
Yeah,
really.
it's there. It's something there. You're right. It's there, and if it's dormant, that's one thing. But once it's opened, the floodgates are open. That's an interesting point. Yeah, 100%. That actually makes a lot of sense to me.
Mm. So it's just when we see some of these things, right, as you said, like sharing the bed, it's just, yeah, it's like when you see those people breastfeeding a kid, and you're like, that kid is way too old for that shit. Like it's just one of them things that are just like, yo, what kind of path are you setting that kid onto? You
Yeah,
know?
and I think it's important to differentiate. You know, I thought like if these things did happen to this kid, horrible things happen to children all the time, and it's
Mm,
terrible. They don't all become serial killers. So that was
no.
that was an important thing to differentiate in the sense that like okay, even the thing with the father that we put in the movie. That doesn't necessarily make that person turn around. But you know, and then the scene with the mom and the father and the boy, um, which people will see when they see it. You know that's a creative liberty. I took that. That's 100% narrative story wise. But to me that was like okay, that's what would be so outlandish. What would be like and to take this to the next level, that kind of thing in regards to that. But I just want to be clear that like yeah, I mean we all face terrible things. Children, it's horrible if I could wrap all the children in the world into this safe bubble and have nothing happen to them, I would love to do that, especially being a father myself. So it's not necessarily like, but maybe you're right. Like if there's already this predisposed thing inside of somebody, and once that you're tapping on the glass, and once the glass breaks and the water pours out of, then it's loose, right? So
Mm,
I think it is important to think that like terrible things happen to all of us. We don't all become serial killers, so it's not an excuse. I wasn't making an excuse for him. I mean, what he did was horrific. Um, what any of these killers do is horrific. There's no justification for it. I mean, it's a lot different versus if someone's attacking you and you have to defend yourself and you kill them. Then
yes.
completely different, right? If you're defending your family, 100%, I get that. That's the nature of being a human and taking care of loved ones and taking care of yourself, self defense and things like that. This is completely different. So, um, yeah, what makes it, if there is something that makes them snap, I'm sure it's different for everybody as well. So I think but I think that goes back to the fascinating aspects of what makes these people become these killers. I think that's a fascinating thing that's been studied forever, and there's still no definitive answers. And maybe, like you said, if there is a certain gene that does it, then that could be something that could be isolated and studied. And I think that's a fascinating thing to consider for sure.
Mm. Yeah, because that's the big thing, isn't it? As you said, like so many people go through tough situations and hard
Right.
times, but they don't then take that next step,
Yeah.
right? And I think sometimes you make a choice,
Yep.
right? Like when your friends, when you're little, your friends might be doing some crazy shit,
Yeah.
and it's just like it's so easy for you to be like, I might as well, right?
Yeah.
But then you just go, you know what? Nah, this ain't me, man. I ain't doing this.
Yeah.
And you just, sometimes it's about drawing that line, and you have that choice to draw that line. Sometimes people step over it and then they go, I can't do this again, right? That's just not me. And
Yeah.
then they never do the thing again,
Yeah.
right? So it's the choices we make. And sometimes it's because of influences,
Sure.
parental, friends, things like that. Sometimes it's the stuff, you read a lot, right? And there's these people that you've read about and they do outstanding things. And you're like, you know what? I want to be more like that person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or you look at sports people. And I'm like Charles Barkley. A sports person isn't necessarily a role model, right? They shouldn't have to, but you can look at them and go, hey, I respect the work that person put in.
100%.
You know what I mean? So I'm going to commit myself like that. So it's just like we make that choice to do these things a lot of the time. But yeah, it's the influences around us. It's that wall, right? How thick that is. There's so many factors that can drive you, and it's fascinating to go, what the hell happened?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
How
How
do
did
we
that
get
go?
here? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always the fascinating thing. And it's always funny because people watch something like Scarface, right? And want to be Tony Montana, right? How many people do you think dress up as Tony Montana for Halloween, right? Even though Tony Montana is a piece of shit, right? He's not a good person, but so many people want to be Tony Montana,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's that crazy thing of like, yeah, people look at certain things and be like, I want to be that person. But on the flip, you're not getting a load of people seeing Jeffrey Dahmer and be like, you know what, I want to be Jeff.
No, thankfully not. But
Yeah.
I'm sure there are serial killers that aspire that have
Oh.
been inspired serial killers. I think that's a factual thing that's happened where serial killers will write to each other and that kind of stuff. So it is kind of weird. That's the Charles Barkley thing, like you said, where I'm an athlete, I'm not a role model. Well, there's serial killers that have been written to in prison by other serial killers that are role models and relish it. It's kind of a weird dynamic. But yeah, there's something off about that. But like you said, going back to the Scarface and Halloween and stuff like that, I think that's, like I said earlier, people are drawn to kind of the dark side of society to a point, right? I mean, it's why people love Darth Vader far more than they like Luke Skywalker. I think there's just that dynamic of this big bad guy, and it's like he's the coolest and all that other stuff, and we'll dress up like him with Halloween, but we're not going to go take over. We're not going to start the Death Star. No one's building a Death Star after watching Star Wars, but they'll dress up like him. And it's even as a kid, it was like, I worked at a library, I think, when I was like 14, and I would find myself drawn to the true crime section, and just I couldn't believe, I grew up in a relatively small town in Massachusetts, and I would just read these things, and I'm like, I can't believe this actually happened. And then you find yourself just turning the pages, and it's just this wildness of the fact that it actually happened is just scary. But it's, again, like moth to the flame, like you said. I don't know what it is about that, but again, I will read about it, I will watch it, I will make films about it. I'm just not going to go be a killer, and I'm certainly, I hope, knock on wood, I never want to be a victim of any of this. So it's just a weird thing, and being a fan of the horror genre, it's a very dedicated fan base. I mean, there is going to be fans of this film that are going to love it, and I hope that's the case. Obviously, I just want to make a film that nobody watched and nobody wanted to see. So, I did want to push from a creative standpoint, and being a fan of the horror genre, I wanted to push the envelope in that aspect too, where I want people to talk about this film, because it was a labor of love, and it was really challenging to make. But I am also incredibly proud of what we were able to accomplish collectively as a creative unit. So there is that aspect of it as well.
Oh man, I mean, creatively, what you and everyone did was phenomenal. This was just so well done.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It really was, because it feels, being in Alaska, you get that sense of like everything, like repression. You know what I mean? Of the environment and everything. And it's in this small town, and there's not a lot there. And it's like those girls at the end are saying, like, where can we get drinks? Like, where to go? And so you get that sense, right? The people on the street, like, there's not options.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, we'll go with you and do this thing. And, so you get all of that from the way it's lit and filmed, and then these performances. Oh my days, these performances. Luke Baines.
Yeah, he was phenomenal.
Boy, like, you know what I mean? I don't know if I want to be in a room with that dude. You know what I'm saying?
No, and here's the interesting part. We had a phenomenal casting director named Debbie Sheridan, and Alex was very instrumental in finding Luke with her, and also Gwen. Those two were certainly amazing. But both of them, and Luke, I mean, because Luke comes off, he just plays evil so well, but he's the sweetest human being. And like I said, I on my Instagram and Facebook, I had posted, I think he had posted initially, there's an outtake between him and Tatiana where they just start cracking up. So as heavy as the material was, and he's just so good to get into this character, but again, like a sweet human being that I would have around my kids, that I'm sure my cats would love. Like, he's just that kind of human being. And in between takes, he wasn't like, thank God he wasn't like this intense method actor where walking around brooding and all that stuff. It was like, I'm ready to, as soon as action, he's there. Other than that, like, what do you want from lunch? What do you want from lunch? Oh, it's as if completely normal. So I was just blown away from the very beginning of what he was able to do. And then, the rest, like I said, Debbie just did a phenomenal job in finding these casting pieces. Some were from LA, some were from the East Coast. We found pieces, and I've had the opportunity to work with, I'd worked with Tatiana before on the show Purgatory, the poster behind me, as well as Eric, who played the younger police officer. And then since then, I've had the benefit of working with Gabriella, Larry, and Jake Marlowe. So I was so thrilled with this cast that I've since tried to pull them and do other movies and TV shows with all of them, because there's not a weak link in the entire cast. I mean, I was just so excited to be working with these talented individuals and kind of collectively getting it. And that trickles to the crew as well. I mean, obviously, my DP, Gav, I've worked with several times. You said the film is beautifully shot. That is a testament to that man. He hates when I say it, but he's a genius in regards to the visual aesthetics and beauty that you see. And that was, by design for my vision. It's like, how do we make this horrible movie, but it's also beautiful at the same time with these landscapes and these shots and how it was lit. And so how do we get to this like really dark material, but also, there's all the wildlife stuff. All of that was in the script. It was very specific. Like I want to have a wolf here doing this. I want to have birds flying here, and so all of that was written. What you see on the screen, like if you were to take the script and read it, it's verbatim for the most part. And I'm not a writer director, and the cast will tell you this. I'm not married to any specific word. I'm not like, hey, you have to. This is what's on the page. Do it like that. So when it comes to performance, I give some liberty in terms of like, be the character. You're fleshing it out. You're breathing life into it. As long as it stays to the direction we need to go. And of course, run it by me first. But as far as the visual aspect, Gev and I, before we ever shot a frame, were very specific and meticulous in regards to what the film was going to do. And I think that was one of the things I was really excited with. Like you said, the performances are great, and it really marries well with that visual aspect of the film.
Yeah, when because I think is Michelle Potkapak, is she the girl we see at the beginning?
She had the headphones in the store.
Yes.
But yeah, she's an actress out of Atlanta, Georgia, I believe.
Yeah, because she's great.
Yeah.
But we don't get a lot of her, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the beginning and it's laying things out, and you don't want to, reveal too much and show too much. So it's like when you were laying it out, like what was that kind of thought? Because this happened, like she what happens to her and all of this, but you don't, because it's early on, you don't want to kind of be like boom 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 boom. So how did you kind of think, how do we roll this out? How do we kind of give people some stuff but not too much?
Yeah, for me, I think it was about levels, like you had spoken to it earlier. It's like in terms of like the horrors and the depravity of what he does in terms of the killer, it's like you're already starting out, right out the gate. It's not like you have to wait a long time to see that he's a human being, but it gets worse and worse and worse. But I wanted to unpack. So if you look at it structurally, her, and I don't want to look at characters as a device, but in terms of the storytelling and the narration, for me, it was to show her. She's a continuation of the boys at the very beginning.
Yeah.
In regards to, she's just trying to survive. She's a kid on the streets. And we see that in the dynamic in regards to the store owner, where it's like, she's, without giving story away, she's just trying to survive like everybody else, and he sees her as kind of like a cockroach, something that just needs to be squashed, right? So it was kind of unpacking that a little bit in regards to like, these are the forgotten children of the world. So her character serves that purpose for sure. And then like we hadn't got into the dynamic in the true story, the radiator, which plays a big part in this story when people see it. That's true. That was all 100% true. So that was the beginning of kind of seeing that element, because we hadn't seen that with the boys initially. So it was like, how do I start that? And like you said, it's a little bit of like taking, I think J.J. Abrams has like a TED talk about the box and opening the box. And when you open the box, inside there's another box, and you just keep kind of unpacking this story, if you will, or peeling an onion, or however you want to look at it that way in terms of an analogy. That's the first element. It's like, how do I continue to introduce that these are forgotten children in the world, disposable, like people have forgotten about them. So she does that. And also the radiator was the next piece. And then the thing we talked about, like then we see that, the next, that was also, where do I start with this? And, and casting both her and Gabriella, because there's nudity, which I've shot so much nudity over the years in various mediums between television and film, and I hate filming it. I hate writing it. There's nothing, I'm like, but for this, it was important. So, I had to have these conversations with these actresses beforehand, like, this is what it is. It's not, I'm not going to shoot it gratuitously. We'll have a closed set. We'll make it very comfortable. Intimacy coordinator, all that stuff was present. Let's just shoot it, get it in the can, and get the heck out of here, because it's, out of all the horrors that we were shot, I mean, you as a director, it's my job is to, like, even though this is a terrible movie in regards to all of the horrible stuff that happens, it's still have to create a safe space where we can be creative and people feel safe, and these actors can really themselves go there. And I think that was accomplished with this. And part of that, and I owe a lot to, like I said, to Luke. He's such a sweet human being that we could go to these places. If there was a very standoffish or harsh or hard actor, if he, like I said, if he was like this method actor that just didn't talk to anybody and was just, that works to some extent for certain roles. This would have been incredibly hard to work with somebody like that, in particular with the dynamic between the women in particular, because of the things that we had to go with. So yeah, Michelle was a trooper. She came in, she was awesome. Like I said, there's not one time where I could say, oh yeah, this actor. No, every single one showed up. The crew was the same way. Where I dare I say we had fun filming it. Like I said, it was challenging, but in between takes and on off days, a lot of the cast and some of the crew went whitewater rafting and things like that. There was all kinds of things that everybody did. So it wasn't like we were just sitting here like this, heads down, and just really miserable. It wasn't that at all. So I'm thankful for that as well. I think there's an energy that comes with that too. If you can create that safe space and that kind of collaborative process, and energy just kind of goes this way. And again, film is a director's medium. It is what it is. But once we start going, for me, it's like, how do we collectively do this? Yes, it's a Michael Caissie film, but that doesn't exist if everybody isn't bringing that and helping me achieve that. Otherwise, if it's just me, I couldn't do what those actors can do, just like I couldn't be a DP like Gev. I couldn't, gaffer and grip and all that stuff. I can't light a shot. I didn't go to film school. I'm not a technical director. So if I'm sitting here trying to light a shot, the simplest, most basic thing for a scene is to, not basic, but to light the shot, get it set up, and act it. If I had a one-man crew, no one would watch it. I tell you, they would shut that off right away, as they should. So for me, it's about surrounding myself with the right team, and I had a great casting crew on this, and I was appreciative of that for sure.
Oh man, yeah, no, they as I said, they do a fantastic job, and I will say, the nudity is not gratuitous.
Yeah.
Right, because I think with Misha, we just get her back essentially, and it's it's one of those things where when you see it, you're just like, oh yeah, that motherfucker would do that. Like you go, of course he would do that. Yeah, he would definitely. And so you see that kind of thing, and then I think with Gabrielle's character, what we get there again, but the way she is and everything, so it's not like a crazy thing. But are those kind of things easier now with all the technology we have, kind of thing? Like, are you able, girls and guys, able to say, not have to reveal everything because of post-production and the things that we can do?
I don't know. I think this film, everything that we did in regards to like practical day of in the camera versus stuff that was done in post, this was a 99.999% all practical. All of the blood and the severing and all that horrible stuff we did there. I mean, I think the only VFX stuff that was done after the fact, we added some snow for continuity stuff. Like there were shots where I think like the Moms on the Bridge, for example, that was filmed with a body double in like a blistering blizzard. I mean, the wind that was all real. That was like probably the coldest I've ever been in my entire life. But like when you cut to like the wider shot, the wind died down, so all of a sudden it almost looks like a different day. So there's some kind of accenting on that. So stuff like that was done. But as far as like to your question, when it comes to like nudity and things like that, I knew it would have looked, for me, it would have felt really disingenuous and kind of ridiculous to have this really intense film of these horrors and then like have like he would do these things like you said, to have the girls dressed or like partially dressed. It would almost feel like, oh, they started to go this way, and then they were like, let's just shy away just because of and this is another thing that I think there's a South Park episode about this actually. In the U.S. in particular, there's this weird thing where like violence is okay, but nudity, oh my God, God forbid, you had mentioned breastfeeding earlier. It's like, God, how can that woman be breastfeeding in public? Well, most of us were all breastfed. It's just part of nature, right? It just is what it is. But like, yeah, we'll watch, someone get their arm cut off on, 8 o'clock in the evening
Mm.
TV show, and not bat an eye. So that's the other, for me, I was like, again, I have young children. I'd much rather have them see nudity, not the nudity with this violence, let's be clear, versus like any of the violence aspect. Like, it's going to take a long time for my kids to watch this film, for example. Obviously, I would never want them to see this at this point because they're relatively young. But yeah, the nudity, like I said, Gabrielle and Michelle were, they're like, no, let's do it. We're fine. And again, it's not like when you're filming, normally there's whatever, 10, 15, 30 people, depending on the size of the crew, right? Normally there's all these people and they're there.
Yeah.
But when you do the nudity, it's like, okay, who do we really need here? We need the camera. We need someone for the intimacy. So we had someone there. Myself, and even myself, I was on monitor. I wasn't like right in front of there. The actors, and then everybody else get the hell out and just monitors off. So like, it's just this, it goes from like the 15, 30 whatever to this, right? So it's a little bit easier. Again, they're going to be on film forever. So it's not like, obviously it takes a level of commitment in that aspect.
Yeah.
Both of them. But I don't know how to mimic that in post and I also kind of wanted to stay away from that because there's this fear, and maybe it's just because it's the fear of the unknown for me. If I'm doing it day of with all the practical stuff, I can see it. I can see how it's unpacking. And if I leave it strictly to post, there's a joke in the film industry, oh, we'll fix it in post. That makes me nervous because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the levels in terms of budget or time, or certain things can be done. Like you said, they keep evolving and getting better and better. But we didn't make this with a big studio. This is a limited budget. It was a very tight budget. So let's get what we need to get, and that part of that is planning, and just like I said, putting the right team together. I had extensive conversations with both of those actresses before we ever even started filming, before we ever got on planes and things like that. So, telling them exactly what I wanted to do and talking to them, and that's where that collaborative thing comes in as well. Like, I think at one point, Michelle, I think when she's in the tub later, I think she was going to have like a bra on or something like that, and she was like, "Is it easier if I just like?" She's like, "It doesn't make sense for me to have this on. Like, I know you're not going to make it gratuitous." Like, and she's like, "I'll lose it if that's." I'm like, and it makes sense because again, you don't really see it, but if the clothing was there, it would look really weird, and we were trying to like frame around it, and she was like, "This is ridiculous." Like, whatever. So it comes to like, if you create that space and it made sense for the story, and I think that's the key piece. I wasn't trying to do nudity, and there's nothing erotic about any of the nudity in this film whatsoever anyway. So it's, like I said, I wanted to shoot it, be done with it, and move on. And I think the performances that everyone's able to achieve is great. And I think that's a testament to the talent of these actors and actresses.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, isn't it? Like, makes sense for the story, and everything made sense for the story and the character and what he would do. Sometimes you watch those films or TV shows and you'll have like that tense standoff scene, and then you cut to a character in a shower, and then it's back to another tense, and you're just like, wait, what was that scene? Like, it doesn't do anything. Like, it's not pivotal to the story. It's not. That's where something's revealed. That's an epiphany. Boy, that's when an epiphany happens, or anything. It's just, for whatever reason, we filmed the female lead in the shower, and it's just like, well, that was weird, right? So we don't get any of that nonsense, which is great.
Yeah, it's actually funny you brought that up. I'll share a brief story without throwing anyone under the bus. But the only time I've ever quit a job abruptly, in any field, that actually happened to me. I was going to shoot a scene with some nudity for a show years ago, and some of the money guys had said, like, "Well, we have these actresses for 8 hours, and they're getting paid to be naked." And you brought it up. They're like, "What if we put them in this shower scene?" And I said, "Wait, what?" That's not in the script. I talked to them the night before. I told them what I wanted to shoot, and it was very artistic, and it made sense for the story. And they're like, well, they're getting paid anyways. What difference does it make? And I said, look, man, I'm not doing that. I'm not asking them to do that. If that's what you want to do, then you got to find another director. And they're like, all right, we'll find another director. So I walked off. I walked off set and I quit. And I didn't come back for like 3 days. Because to me, I was like, that's just disrespectful. It's also, and I knew like, all right, we'd film it. We'd spend all this time. And if we did our jobs right, there's no way that would be put into the show. Or if it did, it would be like you said, Kevin, it wouldn't make any sense, and people would be like, oh, okay, they're just trying to be gratuitous and sexualize this, and the scene that I was filming with them was already sexual enough, but it made sense to the sense of, and this is the other show, not No Tears, it made sense to do it that way, right? I already didn't want to do it because I'm like, God, it's so uncomfortable filming nudity, just because it's, like I said, it's not natural, and there is like a privacy level to it, and I'm a man and I'm filming nude women, and there's just all that goes into it, and I want to be respectful. But yeah, I just was like, no. So that's why I've always kind of carried that with me, where it's like, if someone's willing to go there for the craft and for the art, whether this is theater or film or television or whatever, be respectful of that, and you see it. You're smart enough to know, and I think film goers in general and fans in general know the difference versus like, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense that this character would be like this, versus like, oh, they're just trying to bash us over the head with this nudity and stuff. And so I think that was, I don't want to ever be that kind of filmmaker. I don't want to be a part of that. And to me, it's not going to happen. Not on my watch. I don't want to be anything to do with that, with my name tied to it. And I put my money where my mouth was. And the scene in the shower never got filmed. And then 3 days later, I was back on set. So, but yeah, it was eye-opening to see, like, God, and these were, these money people and I stayed in touch. It's not like they're terrible human beings. It's just sometimes the mindset of like,
yes,
where are you here? Like, where are you going with this? Like, come on, these are not pawns. It's just like, be respectful to the process, and these are human beings. So it was pretty eye-opening for me to see.
Well, I think it's one of those things, right? Not everyone can tell stories. Right, everyone will think that. I mean, you must get hit up so often with like, "Yo, Michael, I've got this great story. Oh man, like, or you know what? I like your film, right? But if you should have done this thing, and the character could have been like." Everyone's got those, notes, but it's just like, yo, you don't understand how this shit can work, right? How a story is meant to make sense. So it's not surprising that some people be like, let's have this scene.
Yeah. Let's just film this, or it'll fit in there, or just whatever. I mean, I do get a lot of people that are saying like, oh, I have this idea, or can you read my script? And I've always tried to, if it's someone who's trying to be a screenwriter or a filmmaker in general, whenever possible, I want to give my time to that, because I was that person at one point, right? Like really trying to strive to chase a dream, because the odds are stacked against any filmmaker, writer, director, actor, producer, and this is a really difficult industry to get into and to actually survive into. So anyone who's going to chase that dream and put the work in, I'm willing, within reason, obviously. I always try and be respectful and try and help out as much as I can. But the one thing that does drive me a little nuts, and you see it in the reviews, not necessarily just from my stuff, but I see it a lot, where it's like, the movie would have been better if they did this and went this way and this way. And I'm like, well, that's a different story, right? So that's a story you wanted to write, with nothing stopping you from doing that, where it's like, oh, did you try this? Oh, and the other thing, I've talked about this in the past too, where filmmakers don't get to put like an asterisk next to their film, because there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that the audience would never know, nor should they, right? Like, like inclement weather, or a cast member gets sick, or reshoots or recasts, or just something goes off, or someone, on all different levels. If you're a director and you don't have final cut, and the producers do, for example, the producers can come in and then change the cut, and then you don't, as the director, you're just kind of stuck. It's like, you see these on huge movies. There's a notoriously famous story about American History X with Tony Kaye, where the cut that we all know that's a brilliant film, it's not Tony's cut. And years later, Tony's now talking about releasing his director cut, and fans, and myself included, are like pushing him, like, yes, please do. We would love to see the different cuts, right? But again, that was a big studio film, and the studio was like, yeah, we're going to go with this cut, and there's nothing that Tony could do, and it's incredibly frustrating because especially, I don't think he's the writer on that project, but for me as a writer director, it's hard to like have that aspect. But the other part is like, my first film, we had a lot of challenges that we never, like, if I would sit here and tell you all the challenges, you'd go like, Jesus, it's amazing the film ever got made and finished. And even as filmmakers, we were sitting there going, it's amazing we finished this film. We had to, but there was so many things. So like when I see reviews that are just smashing things, and that's why on another interview I've done for this film, the interviewer was like, what's a film that you don't like? And I said, ever since I did my first film, I'll never answer that question because it's so difficult to make a film. I don't care if it's a $5,000 film or a $500 million film. To get from script to the screen is just so complex, and there's just so many variables that even if you have everything dialed in and all the support in the world, there's just so many things that could happen. So I just have the utmost respect for creatives in general, whether you're writing a novel or a painter or musician or actor, writer, director, fill in the blank, DP. If you're willing to sacrifice some of the comforts that other, careers have, I've worked many 9-to-5s. I've had successful careers that I've pushed aside because that wasn't my dream, right? And so everyone thinks of Hollywood as like, oh, they're all like living in Beverly Hills and have these nice houses and nice cars. That's like a 1% of the population, right? So we're not all Tom Cruise. So we struggle to pay our bills. Even now it's a very hard time in the film industry with the strikes and the way the industry is and stuff. So, I just got on a ridiculous tangent. I know this wasn't entirely what you asked, Kevin, but that's where I get so frustrated with, and we live in a society now where if you look at like even the trailer for this film, if you go and you look at like some of the comments, people are like just bashing the trailer, and I'm just like watch the film, man, or like just say it's not for me or whatever, just crazy stuff. But like that's with social media and the interaction that we have and the keyboards and all that stuff and people being all, it's an interesting thing because you do get that connective thing that you didn't have in the past. So I can read all these things, and a lot of fellow filmmakers and are like, don't look at that stuff. What are you doing? And I'm like, well, like for this one, it's such a small budget and I really want to push. And so I'm trying to cultivate any interaction that's positive. I'm trying to like thank you for the support, that kind of stuff. And I think it's important because I am appreciative of it. I do hope this film gets some legs, and for all the people that put all their hard work and effort into it, starting with Alex all the way through the cast and crew, all the way through to distributors. I hope that there's a reward on the end of that where people can see the film and it just doesn't get lost with all the other countless films that are out. So that's why I do that. But yeah, I wish the film did this. I don't know okay, what are you going to do with it? Sometimes they say something, I'm like, that's actually a really cool idea. Totally different film, but it's a cool idea. So it's like, it's an interesting thing, but I think that's part of the conversation that you have as a filmmaker and as a creative. I'm sure there's, big Stephen King fan. I'm sure he's got till he's blue in the face where people came up to him and said, I wish he had changed this like this. And I'm sure he's heard that for decades and decades. And I imagine he's rolls with the punches at this point. Who knows? But yeah, that's an interesting way. But yeah, I'll never bash publicly. If you and I are having a beer sometime, Kevin, and you're asking my opinion on the film, I'll be honest with you. But it's a conversation between you and me, not recorded and not shared, because I never want to. And like I said, it's a miracle to get stuff filmed these days, in particular. So I just have the utmost respect for people that are able to do it.
Yeah, no, I completely get that, right? Because my other friend Daniel, he's the same. He's just like, it's so difficult making a film that I can't. Because he sometimes does little kind of cultural reviews and things. But he's just like, I don't really like doing it because I don't want to criticize someone's work because I know what goes into this. And it's just like, I mean, no one sets out to make a bad film.
No.
Right? Or write a bad book or anything like this. And so it's just like a lot of times, I watch things, you get sent things all the time. And some things are for you, some things aren't. But there's usually things that you can go, hey, well, these performances were great. Or, man, there was this scene that did this thing and it was fantastic. Like you can point to certain things that are really well done.
Yeah.
Like sometime, every now and again, a film comes that just doesn't seem to work on any level for you.
Yeah.
But there are going to be people that still will like it. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like you can go, hey, it doesn't work for me because of this, and this. And I always try and be constructive about it. It's never just because it's shit. You know what I mean? It's just like, what that means nothing, man. You know what I mean? So it's just always, but then I like to try and point out, well, if you like this,
Right. Yeah,
this might work for you.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
Good way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I get what you mean. Like sometimes it's just like, oh man, if only they had done this, you'd be like, yeah, it's not the same film, then, is it?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, and I think you're respectful, and you do need to people do need to critique art, if you will. It's been like that forever, right? It's just to me, it's always interesting though because there's these geniuses like Edgar Allan Poe, or there's so many painters that like were considered shit while they're alive. The moment years later after they die, they're the most brilliant people ever, and it's kind of like it's an interesting way that society interacts with art and vice versa. And so, not to get to start talking about art, like I'm a filmmaker, and I think there's a difference between being a painter and a filmmaker, obviously. So I'm not trying to get too deep into that aspect, but like I do think, for this film in particular, like I said, no one's going to watch it and be indifferent, right? There's no one going to go like, whatever. Like you're either, I compare it, and this is a terrible comparison in terms of the film itself. It looked like Human Centipede, right? It's not for me. I watched it. I get it. People love that movie and people hate that movie, right? So No Tears is in the level of like a totally different thing in terms of what I was trying to do versus what Human Centipede was. But it's that same kind of thing where no one watches the Human Centipede and goes, eh. They're either like, it's the coolest thing and I love it, and when's the next one coming out, versus like, what the hell was that? Like, so I think there's going to be some of that here, and I'm okay with that too. I mean, full disclosure, I have social media. I pulled all my kids' pictures and stuff off of social media because I do expect some kind of backlash for this. I'm assuming there's going to be some of that, and also, I want my kids, as they're getting a little bit older, to have privacy and things like that too. So
Yeah.
It was kind of coming organically anyways, but as this film was getting ready to come out, I'm like, here I have this really horrific, hard film to watch, and then I have like my cute daughter, and I'm like, I can't. Let me separate this. Let me get rid of this and protect her. But also, I expect to have some really angry people. Not because I hope, my main thing is like I hope they don't think I'm glorifying this guy. That was never the intention. But again, Kevin, you're not going to probably put No Tears on and watch it 6-7 times over the next 2 weeks. It's not that kind of film, right? So I respect and appreciate you watching it, but it's a hard film to watch. It definitely is. But I think it's a great film, and I think it's worth watching, and I think there's a lot of great things about it. But it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine. I think that's a fair way to look at it.
But it's very well done, right? And it's like, I remember there was a film back in the day called Hard Candy.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God. I've never watched that again, but it was so good. It was such a great film. It was done so, and especially like the way it unravels, because you think when you meet, like, like you think, oh, boom, you think one thing, and then as it gets towards the end, you realize, and you're like, oh boy, this is, that's terrible. But it was so well done.
100%.
And it's just like, when I talk to people about films, I'm just like, great film, Hard Candy. I've never watched it again. American History. I thought American History X is great. I've only ever watched it once.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of those. I mean, Academy Award winning. I mean, I'm not signing up to watch Schindler's List again. I mean, it was The Pianist with Adrian Brody. It's a brilliant movie. He's brilliant in it. I watched it once, and I was like, I'm good. I can't, talk about horrors. That's a whole other nightmare in itself, right? This film, I should probably mention, and I don't know how much time you have. I'll talk until we'll be.
We can.
Feel free to cover at any point, but there's an Australian film, and Justin, his last name begins with a K. I apologize, Justin. I think it's Justin, called Snowtown. which is an Australian serial killer movie, also based on a true story. I think it's from 2000. I want to say 2001. I believe it went to Sundance. No, it would have been later than 2001, but it went to Sundance, and the director and the DP and the writer, I believe, I think the DP went with them, went on to do Assassin's Creed, the studio film, after Snowtown. But Snowtown, I'd seen the movie, and it was pretty influential in regards to making this film, in regards to the tone and some of the pacing, and I'd never seen a film. It's also a serial killer movie, based on a serial killer in Australia who kind of he found a younger protege, if you will, and they were originally killing
Right.
pedophiles. So they were finding these pedophiles and they were murdering them. So it kind of had there's a scene in the movie, which after I got done watching it, I was like, oh my God. And so it kind of stuck with me for a couple of years. And then this movie came out, and I think as I was putting it together, you asked how I kind of structurally did it. Snowtown is completely different in regards to my film, but in terms of like, it's like beautifully shot, and it's incredibly hard to watch, and the performances are brilliant. And the thing that's impressive to me is I think there's only like, if you go to IMDb, there's only like 2 or 3. I think the main 2 or 3 actors have pictures, and I think everybody else was like a local hire in Australia. The film was done for like $1 million, and just amazing. And Assassin's Creed obviously didn't do as well as I'm sure they were hoping it would do, but the director DP has a new movie. I think it's on Hulu actually. I haven't watched it yet, with Jude Law, which is also I think based on a true story. So I'm excited to watch.
Oh, The Order. Yes,
The Order,
it's Justin. It's just the guy. The director is Justin Kurzel.
Thank you.
It was written by Sean Grant. They came up with the story together.
Yeah.
Cinematographer is Adam Arkapow.
Yeah, Adam Arkapow did Snowtown as well. So that's the director, writer. I think the writer for Snowtown was different. But yeah, I think that's so. To me, as a filmmaker, I don't know if Justin would ever watch this, or Adam ever watches this, or the writer for Snowtown. But I do want to give my appreciation to the film that they made. I thought it was really well done and was influential to making No Tears in Hell.
Yeah, it came out in 2011.
2011. Okay, I was off by 10 years. One thing I'm so bad at, and I think COVID made it so much worse, is like, when did this happen, and this, and like COVID kind of gives you like this moment where you can kind of say this before COVID, after COVID, kind of thing. But yeah, if you go back, I'm like, I don't know what year this was. I'm just so bad at that. But as soon as I said 2001, I knew that was wrong because I was at Sundance in 2000. But 2001, I think that was like The Believer with Ryan Gosling was there, which is another great movie. It's hard to watch, but so yeah, I just wanted to mention that because Snowtown was an influence to this as well. So I appreciate that film and those filmmakers.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing though, isn't it? Like you ingest so many things.
Yeah.
Like, and so it's, you're able to see like, oh, this works and this doesn't work, or like the amount of times you talk to people and they're like, oh, there was this shot in this one film and I wanted to kind of reproduce that kind of shot in my film. Like, so yeah, we get influenced all the time by things. So I think it's always nice to give that nod to the thing that, gave you that kind of idea for something, or the allowed you to lay a foundation for something.
Yeah, and I think I always want to do that as well, right? So as much as I'd love to like help up and coming filmmakers as much as I can, because I was in their place as well, the people that have helped shape and mold me, I always want to give credit to as well. And to your point, yeah, a lot of times I'll be watching something, and I work with the DP for No Tears. He's like family to me. He's like a brother. His name's Gev. Sometimes I'll be watching something, and I know we're going to film something down the road, or I'm like, hey, dude, I just watched this, and maybe I'll film this scene. I'll take a clip with my phone. I'm like, when you get a second, check this out. Or like when we're trying to come up with like color palettes or lenses to use, and again, I'm not a technical director, so Gev kind of helps me on the technical aspect of stuff. But he's basically like, all right, how do you see this? And then we kind of unpack it that way. But it's, I'll be like, I really liked this, and this really stuck out. And I just remember when I watched Snowtown, it's this for me. I seem to have like a love for Australian films in general and Australian filmmakers. It's a different pacing than American films. Like there's a little bit more of a slow burn, and I think the narrative told a little bit different. And every time I'll be watching something, I'm like, God, this is really good. And then I look, and it's like, filmed in Australia, Australian Film Commission, or whatever. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't surprise me. So I definitely have like this like kind of thing, and it's weird because how does that play into with American audiences when you're trying to sell a film, domestically versus the international sales? Or is American film, are the film fans going to get this? Is it too slow? Is it too so that was part of like with the No Tears. As I'm making it, it's like, all right, let me take what Justin and his team did with Snowtown. Obviously, I have a very different story. I mean, it's a serial killer, but ours are different as well. There's like a little bit of a hero thing for Snowtown because initially they were, not to ruin his movie, initially they were killing horrible people, and then the trajectory, if you will, is it goes too far, and then the line of like, well, who are the bad guys and who are the is very blurred, and the younger character is very conflicted because he's like, yeah, initially this made sense to me, and it was hitting a nerve for a specific thing that was personal to him. And then when it starts to go off course a little bit, they kind of have like this conflict between the two of them, and that's where the movie works narrative-wise and structurally wise. So, but for me, I was like, how do I take that? I do, No Tears does have this very specific pacing. It's not a big blockbuster action shoot 'em up. It's like I said, there's shots of just birds flying. There's symbolism and metaphors, and I still talk to my English teachers from high school, and I think it's structurally and literary wise in terms of the screenplay and the film itself. I think they would appreciate it because I tried to put in like I said, I wanted to elevate this and kind of make it this thing where it's for the horror serial killer fans. There's stuff there that they gravitate towards, and then I wanted to elevate it as well, and just so there's a little bit more stuff to chew on for other film buffs and fans and just filmmakers or just fans in general to watch. So I think that was what I was trying to do. And like I said, aesthetically, I told Gev, like, we have this beautiful backdrop of Alaska, like, bring the drone, and, there's almost all of the Alaska stuff was, all those drones and like landscape stuff, that's all real. The things that are, that were hard to get were obviously like, I wasn't going to go shoot, this isn't going to run the movie, but I wasn't going to find a wolf eating a carcass. That was going to be kind of hard for me to find. But there is a shot, this is true, there's a shot, if you remember, there's a coyote, I think it is, running across ice, and the drone flies over it. That was real. We were flying the drone, and Gab's like, holy crap, look at this. Like, there's this a wolf or a fox or coyote, whatever, we didn't know at the time. And it's running, and it looks up, it can hear the drone, looks up for a second, and then it keeps running, and there's another, in the distance, there's another one. So that's an actual shot that we got in Whittier, Alaska. Or maybe that might have been outside of Anchorage. But Whittier is a really interesting place because you have to go through this 2-mile underground tunnel from Anchorage to get to Whittier, and it's completely cut off from the rest of the world because the tunnel closes at night and during inclement weather. So once you're over there, you're over there. And there's only about 250 people that live in this town, and they all live, it's like if you think of like a college dorm building, there's this massive building, and like about 250 people live in this dorm structured building. And there's like one bar, there's like 3 or 4 restaurants, but they're only open during like a certain period, I think, like season wise, right? So there's one bar which also acts as the restaurant. So there's the bar, restaurant, the place we were staying where everybody lived, and like, there's a post office and things like that, but that's it. And it's beautiful. It's right against the water. The scene where the mom is on the wind is whipping on her and everything like that. That's Whittier. It's this beautiful backdrop. But to get to this, it's 2 lanes, one on each side, and you just drive. And it's the longest tunnel I think in North America. And you just driving, and think of Alaska with all the weather and all that stuff there. But as we're filming too, I'm thinking like, God, what is there going to be like bears coming? Like, it's just kind of a weird thing. We had a tour guide who took really good care of us, by the way. But I was like, because there's a part in there, you've seen it in the movie, where there's bones. Those are real bones that we got from a butcher. So we're holding these things that, these are bones, and there's some meat and stuff on them, and it's the middle of the night, and we're in the middle of the wilderness, and we're like, I'm like, all right, start to think of like what's going to come out of the woods. And so it was kind of that weird, crazy thing. But yeah, Whittier is a beautiful backdrop, but there's also this level of isolation, and it really lends itself to that kind of like desolate, like you're out there, and if something's happening there, and Alaska in general is also known. People go to Alaska, it's notorious for people wanting to disappear. So there's been serial killers there. There's that Baker. There's a Baker killer or something like that. They made a movie with John Cusack. I can't remember the name of the killer, but flying people up on a helicopter and taking them and killing whatever. But yeah, Alaska's a place where a lot of people don't want to be found again. So there's that kind of element to it. So it just made a lot of sense. Again, I just went on another long tangent to your question, but
no, it's all really interesting stuff.
The coffee is kicking in. This is tough too for me, so I can feel it. So if I'm talking a mile a minute, that's this coffee here.
No, it's all good, and it just reminds me of things, right? Because the bones, like your visual effects people did a frigging great job, because just all of that stuff, like when he's pulling out the tenules and there's that bit towards the end, you know what I mean? And just all of those things, it looked so real, and it's just like, oh boy.
That's Nathan Bright out of Oklahoma. That's him and his team. He's a good friend now too as well. But I met him on this film, and I full disclosure, I've never done anything that required this kind of like practical, effects in terms of like the gore and the blood and all that, and the bones and stuff. And so, I went to Nate, and I've done this. I just worked with Nate actually on a film last month, saying like, this is your area of expertise, and this is kind of how I approach it. I'm like, here's, on the page, everything you saw was written on the page. So it's like, here's my blueprint, if you will. Screenplay is more like a structural blueprint than a finished product. But like, how do we get to here? How do you, like, this is your area of expertise. What do you have? What do you have within the budget and the time constraints? Because we had 15 days to shoot this, so it wasn't months and months and months. It's a time restraint. It's finding that fine line between making your days and not having overtime and shooting something that you're proud of as well. So, but yeah, Nate, Becky, and Jennifer, I think was the team. But they were like, here's what we have, here's what we think. And it's funny, this is a funny story. We're staying in this hotel, and just to back up, we shot a lot of the exteriors in Alaska, but all of the inside stuff, all of the inside of the apartments, the walking in the halls, all that stuff was actually shot in Alabama in the dead of summer. So it was completely, even the Skid Row part actually outside, that was Alabama. So it was like 100 degrees. And so like they have these big winter coats. And so it was a challenge. Anyway, so when I say, just so you know, Alaska, really cold, Alabama, very hot, married the two worlds together. So we're in the hotel in Alabama, and we go back from shooting, there's a day off, and I see all of these police. There's tons of police on the floor that I'm on, and I know Nate and his team are on the same floor, and they have all these body parts. So I'm like, oh my God, maybe the maid went in there and saw these body parts because they look real, right? And so I'm like calling him, I'm like, dude, where are you? There's cops. And I'm trying to ask the police officer, I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, get back in your room. And I'm like, I just want to find out because I'm filming a film here and there's some fake body parts. And I don't know which room. It's one of those rooms. Is that why you're here? He's like, no, it has nothing to do with that. But for a second, I was like, oh my God. And I was asking Nate, like, how do you get this stuff on planes? And he's like, well, I try and drive as much as I can to avoid that because you have, severed arms and legs and bones and skulls and all that was Nate. So yeah, he did a fantastic job, him and his team. And hats off. I love the man, and he really brought it. So, but yeah, that was funny. I was like, oh, they found all they think he's a killer. Holy crap. That would have been interesting, right?
Oh man.
Sure. So.
Yeah. That would have been, it would be horrific for you guys, but it would have been a hilarious story,
100%. But yeah. No, he did a great job. He's like, here's what we can do with this, and here's what we can do this. And then, Michelle, they had to, I don't think it's over in the story, but it required some moldings for Michelle and things like that. And so that's all Nate and his team and the creativity that he has behind that. And and then just, like I said, setting it up and letting them that's his art, that's his creativity, and that's where I was like, show me what you got, and kind of like, what's the best way to wrap this around the story and the vision that we have here. And he really brought it, him and his team.
Mm. Yeah, man, really did. Really, really did. It was, oh man, it was so good, right? And it's just because you've got those elements in the film, right? Because no evil person thinks they're evil.
Right.
Right.
Well,
So it's when
yeah.
you've got the voiceover and the different bits with Alex talking and
Yeah.
going into things, it is interesting because it's just like, yeah, because he wouldn't necessarily think, oh, I'm this bad person, and it's just
Right.
like I'm trying to make the the town better, and just there's all of these different things, which is just like,
Yeah.
oh man.
And and I think this is factual too. I mean, I think there's a level that they were legitimately starving. I mean, him and his mom and stuff too. So
Mm.
full disclosure, everybody, there's cannibalism in this movie. So there's there is some facts of like how much. Obviously, I embellish, the dishes he was making and stuff like that. There's no way for me to know how he was preparing it and things
Yeah.
like that. So I got kind of creative with that aspect, and but again, all the stuff that's about the history of like what human meat tastes like and all those quotes and things like that, that was researched, and those are real quotes and books and things like that. So, but yeah, I do wonder, to your point, was it part of it was just survival? I mean, obviously it's horrific either way, but like, is there an aspect of that where they needed to do that? I would hope to God that's not the case, but who knows?
Mm.
But yeah, there, to his point, yeah, no one's ever walking around saying I'm the bad guy of my own story, right? That's next to impossible to have that kind of self-realization, but also how would you operate if you just thought you were a piece of shit, which is what
Yeah.
this killer clearly was, and his mom.
Mhm.
So yeah, so there's that aspect. So, but yeah, again, Luke brings those levels. I mean, there's just so much that he does, and it to see him do it and unpack it and bring it day after day. Um, yeah, and like I said, I think he got. I only saw him mad once on set, like actually genuinely mad, and it was like some kind of little weird thing about something I don't remember what it was, and it was not even. It was almost like, Michael, I can't deal with this, or something like that. It was like, and it wasn't even like it was not like. And even then, he was like, "I'm so sorry." I'm like, "Dude, like, it's fine. Like, it's fine."
Yeah.
Like his mad was like how you and I are talking too. So I was like, he's like I said, he's such a sweetheart, and he's got a fan base, I think, from Shadowhunters too, in particular, which was a show that he was on. And by a T, as like this movie was ramping up, and it took a while to get this finished film. We had the film in the can for a while, and then there was some issues in terms of like getting it to the finish line with post and things like that. Not creative issues; it was just logistical and things like that. But again, behind the scenes stuff that most people won't ever know about. But it was fans of Luke that started following me, and then was asking questions. And, like, when's this coming out? And he has this really built-in audience that really loves and adores him. And I think part of that is because of the man himself, right? He's a very talented artist, clearly, but like, I know he does like these interactions and these cons and things where he meets the fans from Shadowhunters and stuff like that. And to a T, like these people just adore him, and it doesn't surprise me at all because he, like I said, he's just a sweet human being and incredibly talented. And I couldn't have made this movie. I can't even imagine doing it without anyone but him, and I just think it would have really been a completely different movie. And Gwen as well. Um, Gwen actually passed in December.
Oh.
Yeah, she was 96 when she passed.
Oh boy.
So when she was filming with us, she was older. Yeah, and you would never. I mean, she was incredible. And there's one story that I do want to share, and then depending on what you want to do, Kevin, I might have to plug this. If you want to keep going, I just got to get up and get a plug and plug this in because my battery's dying. But Gwen, there's a scene where it involves a bathtub. You'll know the scene. And before we start, we do one take and we say cut, and then she turns to me, completely straight pan face, and goes, "Well, in all my career, I can say this is a first." And then turns back around, and like everyone started laughing. It was the most hilarious thing because it's like, here's this woman after she passed, I was reading that she was friends with like Montgomery Clift, who I'm a huge fan of, and just a completely different time period, and the things that she's been a part of over the years. But yeah, she's incredible. Again, she was in her 90s when she was filming this, and you would never know. She did such a great job. I had no idea. I thought maybe that, but so she did her ADR work in post for me. And then, like, I think a month after, I didn't realize, I found out late, but yeah, in December she had passed away.
Oh, man.
So she never saw the finished film, but yeah, unfortunately.
I think that is one of the really interesting things about indie films, right? Because we get these phenomenal performances, but, Luke is great, and Shadowhunters was a big series.
Yeah.
Like I just look at he was in the pilot of The Mandalorian. You did Nancy Drew, so he's done like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's been in things. He's had small roles in things, but you just think sometimes you watch these performances and be like, how is this person not like in more stuff?
Yeah.
Like it's so crazy at times, but you're able, because of people like yourself, were able to see these tremendous performances from people. And I think it is sometimes these are the things that springboard them into right that next echelon of roles.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to hear success stories for any of the cast that was involved in this. Absolutely. I mean, Luke, I agree. Luke should be a star, or however you want to define star. He should be working on anything that he wants to work on. I think he's that talented, and a lot of the rest of the cast as well. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if any of these people all of a sudden were on a hit show or a big successful movie or all that stuff. I mean, that's the kind of thing. Again, hats off to Debbie Sheridan, the casting director, for finding these. A lot of these actors just put themselves on tape. We gave them scenes, and then we went and narrowed it down and called them and met with them and things like that. So that's how we kind of found this great cast of characters. But I'm with you. The independent film, every once in a while, you find these people and you're like, why are they not everywhere?
Yeah. I mean, what with the casting, was there any particular thing that you were looking for, or was it just Patricia, no, like she has to be this tall and this hair color, it was just like there's a girl called Patricia in it.
Give me 1 second, Kevin. Let me grab a charger for this. Literally 30 seconds.
No worries, man. Dum, dum, dum. Actually, I didn't need to restart, but I just looked at my phone. It just says Ozzy Osbourne died.
Oh, wow! Holy shit!
Which is because they just did that big gig.
Yeah. I think wow, that's his swan song, though, right? Jeez.
Yeah.
That was a couple of days ago, right? Like a week ago.
Yeah, I think it was literally a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And supposedly it was great. That's what I was hearing. So, hey, like when you look at everything he's done,
always the showman.
Yeah, to go out with that last big thing. I mean, you can't really ask for that much more. I mean, other than more years and all of that kind of thing. But he lived a life for sure.
Yeah, I think he went out the way that he wanted to go out. Well, rest in peace, Ozzy. Gave a lot of fans a lot of great music and a lot of memories. So yeah, rest in peace.
Yeah.
So answer your question. Anything that we were looking at in particular, it wasn't. It's funny you said height because Gabriella's tall. That's incredibly tall. No, for me it was more about realism. I think I was really kind of looking for that, and some of the. I mean, Gabriella in particular has just become a really great friend over the years since we filmed this movie. One of my best friends, and incredibly talented actors. But it was like we gave them the scenes. I don't remember what scene she did. It was most likely it might have been the scene with the soup. If I'm thinking. Anyway. Oh no, I think it was the scene asking for the socks. But it was how do we get this like real? I wanted it to be as real as possible. So it
Yeah.
was like natural. I guess the way to look at it is realism, natural. Um, in particular, the Kathy, whose incredible performance as the younger mother. That was like, we had cast Gwen, and then it was like, all right, let's find an actress who looks like could be a younger Gwen. So it was between Kathy and another actress, and they both did a great performance in terms of like the scene. So then we reached out to both of them, and we said, so I talked to Debbie, the casting director. I said, show them Gwen's audition, because Gwen has a very specific speech pattern and mannerism, and I was like, show them this, and then have them redo their scene, trying to mimic Gwen's mannerisms, if you will. And so this is a true story. So Kathy nailed it. She did a fantastic job. I showed Kathy a clip. This is a true story, and she was mortified. And I was like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And she was so upset. And she was like, "Why would you dub Gwen's voice over my voice?" And I said, "Kathy, Kathy, I didn't do that." She said, "This is not my voice." And she was like upset, like really upset. And Kathy and I become close and friends and all that stuff. And I was like trying to explain to her. I was like, "Look, I promise you I did not do that." And she's like, "That's not my voice." I said, "Kathy, you did. That's how great of a job you did." And I'm 100% honest with you. And she's like, "You didn't have Gwen do it in ADR?" And I said, "Look, Gwen, you know, Gwen literally did her ADR and then, passed away a month later. It was hard for Gwen to go and do her own ADR. I said, I wasn't going to have this woman, sit there and do your ADR. I said, that's just how talented you are. Like, so she just couldn't wrap her head around it, having seen it. And being in the moment, I think it's very different. But she's like, my own family doesn't think that that's my voice. And I'm like, it's your voice. I mean, and post, we clean up the audio and things like that. I even went so far because then she started to get me feeling like, I'm like, crap, did the audio people mess something, whatever, with AI and all that stuff now. So I reached out to the sound guy and I'm like, hey, what's the deal? Did you mess with this? He goes, no, that's her audio, man. I cleaned it up like I clean everything else up with background noise and all that stuff, things that they do. She's like, but that's her, man. So yeah, we really lucked out in terms of like finding these incredibly talented actors and actresses. And yeah, the main thing that I told Debbie was like, just I'm looking for authentic and real and natural and kind of like really kind of ground the story, because the story is just so outrageous, and obviously it's based on a true story. So like anything that could get kind of that, I keep using the term fly on the wall, like it's as if like it's real and you're watching not a documentary, but like as if you're actually experiencing this moment. And I think that's kind of underlining current, if you will, in regards to how we did the casting pieces for the film.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's interesting, man, because the performances are great. They are great. Now, one thing that you mentioned earlier, which I'm curious about, that you didn't get any notes on the script.
No.
Now, how does that then affect what you do? Because I imagine on everything, like you've been doing this stuff for like, boy, was it like 2007 was your first gig? I think. Like,
I mean, the first legit, I'll say, like big film credit was Hangman with Pacino and Carl Urban and Brittany Snow. I think that was 2015, possibly somewhere on that route. 2015, it was 2015. I had done some other stuff, shorts and web series and things like that. But I think I want to say my first, Hangman was my first. Well, I was a co-writer on that script. But yeah, if you want to do the comparisons between Hangman versus this one, I mean, Charles Huttinger is my co-writer on Hangman. We did rewrite after rewrite after rewrite after rewrite after rewrite. At one point, Hangman was a found footage film when we initially had written the script, and found footage came and went, and that's how long the development process of that movie was. The cast was changed, and once the cast got involved, they all had notes, so there was changes in that aspect. And we had like 3 or 4 different directors attached to that project at one point, so each director had different notes. And so I was used to. No writer loves the rewrite process and the note process. I would be shocked if any writer would sit here and say they like it, but it's kind of the nature of the beast. So when I didn't get any notes on this, I was like, oh my god. Part of me was like, there's a level of like gratitude for that, but there's also like somewhat of a little bit of insecurity going like, okay, well now this is on me. So
Yeah.
this is my fingerprints. There's nothing. I can't blame anybody else. I can't say, well, I would have done it differently because, I didn't come up with the concept. Like basically, Alex said, "Here's the killer. Go run with it," and that was it, right? So he read the script. He was very hands on in that aspect and very supportive and involved in casting. And then obviously was an executive producer on the project as well. So it's not like he wasn't involved, but like, yeah, I got no notes. And then on the cut, I think the only note I got initially was like, why do some of the homeless people have shorts on? And I was like, well, because this is backstory, and independent filmmakers will appreciate this. I mean, all of the homeless people in the Skid Row scenes are all my crew members. So we couldn't afford extras.
Mm.
Sounds like a crazy thing to say because they're on the lower end in terms of cost, but like when you're this tight in the budget, it's like every single thing counts, right? So I can point out if you're watching the film, like, oh, there's my production designer, there's my second AD, and so they're wearing shorts because we're filming in Alabama and it's 100 degrees, so like, they're wearing shorts. And I'm like, you see homeless people wearing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate, but we tried. I don't know if I should say this or not. Let me think about this. Well, I'll say it. We contemplated filming some actual homeless people when we were in Alaska, and we thought about it, and we thought, the right way to do it would be to go and get consent and have them sign stuff. And then there's the guerrilla way of doing it and filming it and not getting their consent, and it was just felt gross. So you know what, and there's a safety issue in regards to like, do we want to go and try and get them to sign this? And there really wasn't any money to give. We could give them a little bit, but like, we thought about it and we thought, you know what, let's just create our worlds versus trying to steal these shots or do it the right way. But the interaction is such an unknown variable. And there's a level of like, do I want to, because we were a small crew too, particularly when we were in Alaska, it was a skeletal crew because we didn't fly out everybody. There's not a single line in the movie from an actor that was filmed in Alaska. Everything was filmed in Alabama that's dialogue wise. So all of the stuff that's filmed in Alaska was all body double shots and things like that. The mom on the bridge, for example. That's our wonderful tour guide, who was lovely enough, had a look to be similar to Gwen, but to get bundled up and go do that. So otherwise, it would have been a challenge. But so we tackled things in a certain way. But yeah, that's the only note, and it was kind of like a throwaway note. Like, I wish the homeless people didn't have shorts, but it wasn't like, what the fuck did you like? It wasn't any of that, or it was like, go reshoot it because we couldn't afford reshoots. Obviously, we wouldn't do that anyways. But yeah, by and large, everybody, and like I said, the stock footage stuff. There is stock footage, and some other filmmakers are probably cringing right now, going like, "Why are you admitting the stock footage?" Well, if you watch the movie, like I said, I'm not a National Geographic filmmaker. I wasn't going to get wolves eating a carcass. It's just not going to happen. But again, it was written in the script. As I wrote the script, I actually went and found the found footage. So I kind of unpacked it backwards. I was like, visually, I want this to be this. And then I went and I looked at found footage. So I had, not found footage, sorry, stock footage. I had these shots already mapped out. So when we got to post, it was like, yeah, here's this. And so I even told the executive producers, make sure you keep this money here, this money here, this money here, because we're going to have to get licensing for things like this. And the normal question is like, well, do you really need this? And yeah, it works. I mean, it takes it to the next level. Otherwise, like I said, we were lucky to get that really cool drone shot. But I could have been in Alaska for 6 months and not got the wolf eating the carcass. Nor do I want to get that close. I like everything. So God bless the people that are able to shoot those things. It's a skill set in itself, and I appreciate them and for being a part of this movie. So yeah, licensing was important for that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I'm totally pulling back the curtain for you here. Letting all the ins and outs.
Hey, no, it's always interesting to hear this because sometimes you see certain shots and you're like, did they get that? Like, how was that done? You know what I mean? And it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's some beautiful, like I said, that's an art in itself. There's some beautiful shots that, you know, stock footage is a whole thing. I mean, my first film, I think, for Hunter's Moon with Thomas Jane, you know, we were, for the opening credits, we shot a lot of great drone stuff, but then when we wanted to transition from some of the roads that we were on, these these mountainous roads, get into like the city of Los Angeles, you know, there was some of these great drone shots that were stock footage of just the freeway and like this overhead thing. And yes, I could have got Gev out there with a drone and tried to get it, all that stuff, but it was already captured and it was beautifully shot. It was like, okay, so let's pull that in there. So these little moments, there was like a time lapse one in Hunter's Moon that of the trees and the sun and the moon going over. You know, again, I could have set up a camera and shot that, but it was like after the fact when you're sitting there. I think Hunter's Moon really helped me make No Tears in Hell, because when I realized when I shot Hunter's Moon, my narrative process didn't really think of transitions as much as I probably should have. So in this one, like I said, all the transitions were already in there, and it was like, what's the story? What am I trying to tell from a literary perspective in terms of the narrative? And so I learned from Hunter's Moon, don't wait until post to realize, oh, it's very jarring to go from this to this, and we need something there, and let's go look through stock footage and do all that stuff. And it's part of the learning process, because I didn't go to film school, so I learned everything by trial and error and being on film sets and learning from people that know a lot more than I know, and learning from other people. So yeah, my first film, I'm incredibly proud of it, but it helped me make No Tears in the sense of like, this is how I should do this. And so a lot of that afforded me the ability to do that ahead of time. So instead of being reactive, I was proactive, and I think that really helped.
Yeah, I mean, hey, there's seasoned directors, and sometimes you'll watch a film and there's a weird transition in there. I forget what the scene was. It was very early. Is that at the, you know, within the first, I think, 10 minutes, but on Superman, right? I watched that the other week, and there's a bit where I think we're with Lex, and then suddenly it transitions to, I think, Clark walking to the planet, and you're just like, wait, how do we get from that to, huh? That's very weird. You know, so sometimes that happens.
Yeah, sometimes it's a creative choice for sure, right? So, I mean, if that's the case, then, you know, I think as a filmmaker, when I turn a finished film in and the director's cut, and hopefully if you get final cut is like, I want to be able to say like, this is what I want. This is my vision. Like, versus like, this is the best I could do, which, you know, everyone in any aspect of life, we're all trying to, whether you're making your bed or working your job or you know, raising your we're all trying to do the best that we can. But it's like, when I turned No Tears in, and you know, the first time I saw the finished cut, I was like, I'm being 100% honest, I couldn't imagine doing anything differently. Like, that's where I was like, and I can tell you, when we started filming it, I knew there was something there. And that's where I was like, God, you know, because I've been screenwriting for so long. So from the writing perspective, I feel really confident in that aspect, right? Like, it's what I do. It's second nature. I've been writing my entire life. It's what I love. I live and breathe, and I just love writing. If I couldn't write, I would die. Like, I honestly believe that. Directing, you know, is kind of a thing that's happened later in my career, and I always wanted to direct. But so for me, there's still, and I'm still learning as a writer. If you're not learning, you know, you should always learn anything, right? So I'm still learning from better writers than myself. I'm still reading. There's always ways I'm still evolving my voice over the years. It changes as I do. But directing is like this thing where it's like, you know, there's always these questions of like, can I do this? Am I good at it? Is this something that I really want to? Because it's very taxing. It's very nerve wracking. You know, I'll say this: I struggle with anxiety since I've been in my early 20s. So there's a level, like when you're writing a screenplay, there's solitude, and it's just me. And if I'm having a bad day, I can just shut the computer off, go take a walk. But when you're on set, you can't disappear. It's everything starts and stops with you. So there's this level of like added thing. And so No Tears was the first time where I'd seen a little bit. I shot a TV show called Purgatory in Armenia. I saw a little bit of this there, where I was like, I'm enjoying myself. I feel like I know what I'm doing. I feel like there's an energy to this. I feel good, and I think that we're achieving something, right? And so Purgatory, I started to feel that. Um, it was less of like, let's get through the day and like, God, I hope I got this, hope I got this. And when No Tears just brought it to a whole nother level. And like, as we started filming it and I started to see like the dailies and stuff, I thought, God, there is something really here. You know, modesty aside, I'm not trying to sound egotistical at all. I just was very proud of what we were able to do. And like I said, it's a very collective thing. And the team collectively really made a great movie here. And I cried. I cried a couple times. The DP cut a teaser trailer after we had wrapped. And I saw this teaser trailer he just put together. I wept. I cried because I thought, oh my God, this looks so good. And it wasn't the official trailer, and we hadn't cut the scenes or anything like that. But I was like, I'm doing this. I'm like living it. You know, it's like this is one of these moments where, and you know, I think that's something any filmmaker that's watching, or any creator that's watching this or listening to this, is to celebrate. Like I've tried over the years to celebrate these wins, big or small as they happen, because it just society does this. I think this industry does this, where it's like the moment you wrap something, okay, what's next? How do I keep doing this?
Yeah.
Part of it's out of necessity, right? Like I have mouths to feed, so I can't. You know, I'm not living in my house in Beverly Hills, everybody, and living off my $1 million in the bank account. So it's a continuation of like trying to be successful and also pay bills and things like that. But little wins, right? So, you know, I think back at like the first time I did a web series. God, this must have been like 1999 or 2000, before web series were really a thing. And Wes Craven had picked our web series to feature on YouTube's homepage for Halloween.
Oh, shit.
YouTube did, I don't know if they still do this, but YouTube does this thing where they pick horror people to pick what'll be the highlighted videos on Halloween. And so I got this call and I'm a huge Wes Craven fan. Nightmare on Elm Street's one of the biggest influences for me to even be in filmmaking. And I just remember like I lived in a really small apartment. I'm like running around and I'm jumping up and down, and I thought like, this is it. This is the extent of like life could never get any better, right? And in that moment, I was like, enjoy this moment. To me, it was the greatest. And then, you know, Hangman comes around and Al Pacino, and you're talking Al Pacino, and it's like, life doesn't get any better. And so it's finding these moments. And so for me, No Tears as a whole was the first time that my joy was like, yes, I know I can write. Yes, I know this is the life I've chosen. Like I get to get up. I get to get up. It's not always easy. There is like financial struggles. It happens all the time. It's a hard life to chase a dream, but like I'm in the right place. So with No Tears, when I saw that, and then when I saw the cut with everything put together, the finished film, I was just like, oh my God. Like, first of all, I was like, oh my God. I was like this, watching some of it, because like, even I was like, Jesus, this is intense. But yeah, I was really appreciative. So I would encourage any filmmaker or creative, whether any kind of artist, anybody that puts themselves out there creatively for other people to see, just make sure you celebrate those small wins, and because they're important. Otherwise, you just get caught up in this vicious cycle of like continuously trying to chase the carrot, if you will. Carrot.
Man, it's so important, because it's easy to get in your head with these things and to wonder, right, is anyone actually watching, listening? Does anyone care?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's just like you're trying to create authentic things, and things like, you know, like for you, you're trying to tell great stories that mean something. And
Absolutely.
even if it's fictional, there is a reality to it, right? That you watching it and going, well, I know, right, we're not really in this thing, but I buy we're in this thing.
Of course.
Right? I imagine what you're trying to do, and what I try and do is give people a sense of what something is. You know what I mean? And in a conversation, let someone talk about what they've done, right? And give them that space. And you know what I mean? Try not to talk too much, right? Give people like questions that let them, you know, really dive into things. And that's what you try and do, but you're not quite sure. You're like, am I doing this thing? And I remember in would it be 20? No, it wasn't 2020. Fuck, I forget what year. It was when James Samuel's Harder They Fall came out.
2021.
Yeah, it might have been 2022.
22, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, because it premiered at the London Film Festival. So I put my review out.
Oh wow.
And then I get a message on Instagram, and it's James Samuels, and he's just like, "Yo, when you talked about this bit, that's exactly what I was doing." And I'm just like, "What the fuck?" Yo, I'm getting this message from James Samuel. That's incredible. That's what I mean? And it's like that was huge. And then there's a film. It's a great Western film called The Thicket. Elliot Lester directed it, and I put the review out, and I wanted to, I always, a lot of times when I get sent things, I'm like, yo, any chance of having a conversation? And a lot of times you're like, no one's available. We can't make that happen. And so I put the review out, and then he hit me up and was just like, thank you for the review. I really enjoyed it. And I'm just like, Elliot, let's watch my fucking review. That's what the fuck? And then agreed to come on the podcast for a conversation. I'm just like,
oh wow,
Jesus. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's those things that you look at and you're like, yo, that's great, man. Like, so I agree. You celebrate those, those highlights, Yeah,
and you had mentioned independent film before too. Like, if it wasn't for people like yourself, Kevin, like, there isn't a big studio backing No Tears. Like, it's not a big studio film. It's the distributor is the great distributor, but they're boutique, and it's if we don't have people like yourself to make the public aware of the film, right? Like, that's how this film will get out there. So I have the utmost respect for yourself and like putting yourself out there, because like you said, you don't know. You're venturing into this creative world and putting yourself out there as well as everybody else, in terms of like, you can get bashed too, just like we can, right? Like, or like you said, you do something and nobody watches it, right? So it's like, how do you build up that? I couldn't do what you could do, because I would imagine the moment that I like having to build up the audience and that trust factor, and kind of building that, getting to that place. And also, I think you should speak more, Kevin. Honestly, I think you're thoughtful and intelligent and stuff. So feel free to talk as much as you want during this. I really enjoy our conversation. But like, there is, like, you're taking a chance and you're spending your time and you're building something, and again, like, if it isn't for people like yourself, I don't get to do this. I don't get to talk about my films, and I don't get to like kind of give that asterisk I was talking about, that behind the scenes stuff, and also talk to other, for me, it's like, I would love. Should I share this story? I'll share a story that happened yesterday, without talking about this person, but someone that reached that operates in the post world for film, and they're actually in the UK, and they were looking for some feedback on a reel that they're doing, and I followed them on social media, Facebook or whatever, and I don't know them from Adam, but I was like, I'll take a look at it. It's going to be 2-3 minute reel, and I'll give some feedback or whatever, and from that, this person was saying, like, can we work on some stuff, and I'm always trying to find like pieces, and I tend to work with the same people once I find the right people and things like that. But certain things, if you film, and I think the general public probably doesn't know this, but if you film in like certain states for tax incentive purposes, a lot of times like the post will go through that state, because to maximize the return on the investment and things like that. But if there is times when that doesn't matter, or like certain places do things better. So, I flat out told this person, like, I might have something coming up that possibly could work on. And then they sent me this really nice message, and I don't want to ruin the trust, so I won't share but I'll just share the overall 30,000 foot view of what it was like, I've been having a really rough time, and like really questioning, should I be doing this, and just you taking your time. And this, I'm not saying this story to like pat myself on the shoulder. No. Nothing to do with that, but because I shared the same thing with this person back, where it's like, he's like, thank you for doing this. It kind of reaffirms that I'm in the right place, and I'm going to have these. And that's what I try to explain to them, because I personally have been, even recently, like going like, God, is this like, I'm just tired of like, struggling, and like I could go do a 6-figure job, and I've done it, working and running restaurants. I used to run restaurants. Before that, I worked in luxury properties and hotels, and I did really well for myself, but it wasn't my dream, and I didn't move out to LA to do either of those things. But there comes like this jumping off point, right when Hangman was happening. I was like, I can continue to make good money and do really well and be really successful at this career, but at some point, if I, working 90 hours a week at a restaurant doesn't afford me the ability to write, doesn't afford me the ability to chase this dream, and you're gambling away, and you're saying like, I'm going to go eat ramen noodles to make this dream come true, and it's a really scary part. So that's the other part for me, like when I'm talking or like trying to be open in terms of to other filmmakers or other creatives, is like we have to kind of, and this speaks to what you do, Kevin. If there isn't this like community, particularly in the independent film world, because again, the general public sees movie stars, they see big movies, whatever. It's the role at the end of the movie with all of those people's names, like these people that are, the caterer for. I'll speak to friends with the caterer on Facebook. Catering on No Tears was fantastic. These are all these people that nothing will make a film break, or like having to great food on a film goes a long way. It really does. So hats off to her and her team. But yeah, it's if we don't have this kind of community vibe and support one another, it's tough. It's a very lonely thing, and I think a lot of talented people quit. Some because they have to and they have no choice. Others because they, they're just needing that extra little ability to just feel that they matter and that they are striving for something that's achievable. And I tell friends that I'm close to, I don't necessarily think it's the most talented people that make it in this business. I think the ones that, quite frankly, just persevere the longest. I mean, I moved out to LA in 1999, and my initial core group of friends that were made up of actors, writers, directors, musicians, whatever, people that I met here, the bulk, almost all of them, no longer are in the industry. They've left LA, they've married, they've had kids, they do this, they do that, and there's nothing. And I'm not, just to be clear, there's nothing wrong with that. It's incredibly noble. You have to take care of your own, and at some point you make those decisions, right? But it's like I respect the hell out of people like yourself, Kevin, because again, it gives this medium for me to not only talk about my films and push my films, but it also gives me the ability to like share my stories, and I'm very honest. Like I'll talk about the ugly stuff because that's the stuff that nobody ever talks about, and it's that's why I mentioned anxiety. There's so many people that struggle with anxiety. It's a motherfucker. I mean, it really is. Just some people just have a hard time getting to. There's been times where going to the grocery store was a struggle for me. Nothing to do with what was going on. It's just anxiety when it just come up or whatever. So like, I appreciate you giving this platform to not only push this film that I'm incredibly proud of, but also so that I can talk about the team that made it happen. And I've shared my appreciation individually with pretty much everybody that worked on the film in private or as a mass group or whatever. But this gives me another chance to say, like, also if someone's looking for a great practical effects person, Nathan Bright, he's out of Oklahoma, hit him up. If anyone's looking for a genius DP, Gev out of LA. I'm not going to say your last name, Gev, because I will butcher it. I apologize. Look it up on IMDb. He's a brother of mine, but I will mess up his last name. Any of the actors, reach out to me on social media. You want to get in touch with some of these actors? They're right for your parts. Reach out. Sarah, who was our production designer. I'll put this out there, Kevin, so all of Luke's apartment, all of the interior, that was all built on a soundstage by Sarah and her team. So that was a bunch of walls that, I gave her sketches because I worked out shots beforehand on, there's a shot, I think, when Mom is sitting here and it would kind of rack focus to, we'll just say the radiator without ruining it. That was by design, and I gave Sarah, who I'd never met at the time, like, here's my sketch. I just need to be able to have a camera here. And this is more technical than I normally get, but because I had this kind of open playing field where she's like, I'm going to build the apartment, tell me what you want. I was like, okay, that's cool. So I gave her dynamics, but all of everything else, that the design, all the how she put things together. She also did all of the cooking and the food that they ate. She took a lot of pride in that too, which I think was great. So I think after take of them eating, as much as the food was good, I think like any actor, they were like, no more. Um, but she did a great job on that. So these are all like my chances to talk about how these things get made. And I also find that it's like the extras on a Blu-ray or DVD where you get to hear the director's commentary.
Mm.
I've never done one of those, so this is kind of my ability to do something like that. So I appreciate what you do, Kevin, so I can kind of tell these stories and then also talk about these people that make it happen. Um, this is the cool part too. Like the apartment was in the soundstage. The moment you left the apartment, you know where the maintenance guy is when he's got the keys, he's trying to get
Yeah.
in. That was an abandoned school in Alabama. So the hallways, all the hallways where the mom and the when they're walking through all the glass, all that stuff, that's a school. So the outside was that. Inside was the apartment, the Skid Row Sarah designed just outside the soundstage, outside in the parking lot. All that Skid Row was there, so that was built there. And then, so these are all the pieces that kind of come together when you're putting a movie together. And I think that's the fun part of the storytelling is, and maybe some people don't want to know this too. I thought about that too, is like, someone just want the illusion of like just watching a film and just being entertained. So that for those people, put your earmuffs on and don't listen to this part. But I find it fascinating because I'm a filmmaker. Of like, how did they do that? And where does this and all that stuff too? So yeah, we really everything. It was not easy. It was a lot of challenges. The rain for the scene with the kids, the young kids when they're out by that was legit rain. I mean, it was pouring out and had these young kids that were there. And I should say this: the diver. The diver who goes into the water, that's Nate Bright. That's my special effects.
Ah.
I turn around, like, where's the diver? And he's in the suit. And I'm like, what the fuck? Dude, what are you doing? He's like, yeah, the diver, we couldn't get the diver, so I'm going to do it. I'm like, what the fuck? The dog is Sarah's dog. The stunt coordinator is the guy who's walking with the dog. So
Yes, I saw that.
It's Gary. Gary's a great guy. Gary made us all feel really safe because there is some interaction that I was, uncomfortable with. So there was all of that. So yeah, I mean, all of these things, and that's why I think that people that work on films will tell you like it becomes like this family, right? And I think if you count pre-production, that's one thing, but like 15 days of shooting, it's 12-hour days plus some people are working more than the 12 hours, and it's just hell. But like you grow to love and sometimes get furious with these people. But like that's the energy that you see, and I think that's why this film, I'm so proud of it because there's to a man and to a woman, everybody that was involved with this from the very beginning to the very end. I'm incredibly grateful, eternally grateful. And that extends to you now, Kevin, for giving me this platform.
Oh, I mean, hey, this is all thanks to Scott, right? If Scott didn't hit me up, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So, like, Scott's come through with some really great stuff. So, I'm really thankful for Scott for looking it all up, man, And I think it speaks volumes as well, because you said, you've now worked with a lot of these people and other things, and I think that speaks volumes, right? Because if you're a piece of shit, they ain't working with you again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they didn't enjoy the experience, right? If they didn't think you had talent, they wouldn't work with you again. So it's just all of these things are just proof of what's being done.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I try and, it's the same. I think it's part of it. It's how I was raised too. I think that comes into it. I have a lot of respect for my mother and my grandmother in particular that raised me a certain way. And so, it was the same thing when I was running restaurants or how I raised my kids. It's just, how do you get from point A to point B respectfully and treat the people with respect and understanding. There's so much I don't know about filmmaking and I'm still learning. And like I said, some of it I want to learn and I'm curious about. Some of it I just realized that that's not going to be my area of expertise. Like for editing, for example, the editor of the film, Brady, is a great editor. I don't want to be an editor. I can't sit in an editing bay in the dark and do what Brady does. I would lose my mind. I would absolutely lose my mind. And every editor that's ever worked with me will tell you, they're like, how do you want to come in and do this? No, I don't want to sit next to you and put together the cut. I have no interest in doing that. I don't even know what I'm looking for. Here's my notes. I know, like, once you put together the, I on set we circle, I like this take, I like that take. So they have a roadmap, if you will. They put it together, and then I just give time coded, meticulous notes, and then we talk it through. And it's the same thing. I have a film now in post that I just shot with Jeff Fahey and Mina Savari and Lachlan Monroe called Rough Draft, and Paul is my editor on that one, and we're close to picture lock now. And it's the same thing where it's like, Paul, you're the editor, Brady, you're the editor, no tears, like, do your area of expertise, do your creative craft, and then again, it's my vision, if you will. I'm just going to take what you have and then kind of mold it, and I might know, like, oh, I know we shot this, I think there's a better take of this, or like, I see what you did here, it doesn't necessarily work, but what about this? And then it's still more just a continuation of what we did on set. But yeah, I just think, and that's Scott, right? What Scott does, putting us together. I couldn't do what Scott does. I don't want to do what Scott does. But I appreciate what Scott does, and I need Scott. Love Scott for that. But yeah, it's all of these pieces. It's the same thing. Like, people always ask me, like, why don't you act in your films? Because I did grow up in the theater, and I do love acting, and I did do a lot of theater acting when I was younger. And it's like, one, I don't know if I could do it, and two, like, if I ever were to do it, I don't think I would do it on a film I'm directing. There's just so much else going on, and I have respect for, if someone like Ben Affleck is acting and directing, he's also shooting. With all due respect, I think he's a very talented actor and director, but shooting for like 6-7 months, right? Like, if I had that kind of time, sure, maybe I would try it, right? But also, I leave it to the experts, and I know where my, here's the words, here's what's everything that came out here. You breathe life into it, and actors do. If I were to get in that headspace, acting might be the one thing I would want to try. But yeah, I just have respect for all the talented people that were involved in this movie, and yeah, like you said, I keep working with the same people because I can see their talent, and also I think, yeah, there is some mutual respect, and it's reciprocated both directions. So I love to call Larry, who was one of the boys at the beginning of this movie. I called him up for the one I just shot with Jeff Fahey. I said, hey man, you shooting something in Missouri, what are you doing? And he's like, just send me the script, let's do it. So I just worked with him, and Gabriella was also in that movie, and I've cast Gabriella in a couple things since then as well. So I love also, because when you know the actors, you can also start to write parts for actors that you know how, because I also work, the way I work is very particular. I don't do a ton of takes. I'm not trying to be Clint Eastwood, but I'm very honest with the actors. Like, when I'm doing a wide shot, I'm going to do 1 to 2 take, and we're going to move on, because I don't want to live in the wide. I'd rather give you more takes in the close-ups and things like that. But I move really quickly, and that's not going to be for every actor. It's a challenge, and I have to adapt sometimes as well, and as do they. So when I find actors that are talented that trust me, I mean, once with Laurie and Gabriella, I'm just like, I'm good. Are you good? And they're like, if you're good, we trust you. And that builds up that trust, so I can kind of, instead of trying to keep going and going, and I know that I'm going to use the take that I already like, and if there's a level of, like, not kind of feeling out the director and feeling out the actor, that happens when anytime you work with a new actor or actors, that happens. I think it's natural to try and build that trust. But it's the same thing with, like I said, I have a producing partner that did Hunter's Moon with me. He just did the one Rough Draft with me. His name's Clayton. We've known each other since Hunter's Moon. Love the man, would go to bat for the man, vice versa. So anything that I'm doing, I want him involved with, and it's the same thing with Geb, the DP. I love that man. I think he's a genius. So when you find those people, why not? You've seen it with the director of Nosferatu, and now doing Werewolf. He's using
It has a Robert Eggers, right? Yeah. It's like him, like because Happy Gilmore 2's coming out on Friday. I rewatched Happy Gilmore 1, and you see that Adam Sandler still holds up, man. I was laughing so hard. It still holds up. But Adam, he works with a lot of the same people. Judd Apatow works with a lot of the same people. Nolan, and there's a reason for it.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Once you find that thing, I mean, like I said, I just worked with Jeff Fahey, and we immediately hit it off. And so I'm putting together a horror movie, hopefully to shoot in August. And I called Jeff right away, and I was like, hey man, I think this if you're interested, like take a look, give this a read. So if I can pull this off, I'm going to work with him again because he got me and I got him, and incredibly talented actor, and just holds the screen. And Rough Draft is the one that's in post right now. It's basically a writer, a very successful writer that's struggling to come up with the perfect ending to his latest book. And so as he's writing, we're seeing his story, and his story is kind of in the vein of like a Friday the 13th, if you will, like some teens go in a cabin, and then there's a killer hunting them, and who's the killer and all that stuff. But the device of the film itself is like, if he doesn't like something, he's highlighting the words and deleting it. And as he's deleting it, the audience is seeing the kind of the rewind on the screen. And then the characters kind of get smart of this. Like it's kind of a paying homage to the horror movies that I love, but also trying to turn the tropes and the cliches onto their heads a little bit. So, like one scene, just going to start the car, and it doesn't start, and Jeff's character is like, God, cars never start in these movies. It's so cliche, but it's a trope. It works for a reason. And he's like, nah, I can do better, and he deletes it. But then she goes to put the keys in, and she's like, wait a minute, I already did this, like a deja vu moment. And so the worlds start to kind of collide, if you will. So, but the reason I bring this up is Jeff. It's just basically him sitting in a screen. There's interaction, and Mina Savari plays his wife, and she's brilliant in the film. And but like there's something so amazing about him, just this magnetism. And Luke has this as well, where it's like you just sit there, and it's very easy to look at them. And they're reading my words, and they're putting the performance, but like I'm just sitting there, like as a fan, almost like, oh yeah, okay, what's next? Like kind of that kind of thing. And so yeah, I would work with Jeff again, just like I would work with Luke again. And it's just one of these things where when you find these relationships, and also Jeff, credit to Jeff Fahey, he's been doing this for so long. He doesn't need 55 takes. He's like, Michael, if you're good, like let's just go. There's an energy to that where it's like, if we need extra takes, we're going to take it. If I don't get what I got in the performance, because I am looking at the monitor, it's not like I'm just willy-nilly like not paying attention. But once you get it, you move on. And like, it's not like theater where it has to be this Shakespearean monologue where everything has to be perfect, because I know I'm going to edit this and cut this and do this. And sometimes, newer actors think like, oh, I messed up that one little piece. And I'm like, yeah, but I've gotten you saying it 6 times between the wide and their close up and your close up. I promise you, I will not embarrass you. You're good. And so kind of getting that trust of like, oh, the boom came in the shot. Well, yeah, it was in the shot for like 2 seconds. We're shooting 5K, so I can punch in. I know it'll get framed out. Or also, there's 4 other takes that we took. You're fine. I can also I can box it out in color. I can VFX it. So all these things are like, when you're directing and you're dialed in, you can kind of think of these things. And so everyone wants to do the best job that they can, but it's like building that trust where the actors know I'm not going to embarrass them and vice versa. So I think that's an important thing. So that's why I think you see these actors working with the same directors, producers, and it makes sense, writers. Adam McKay has been working with Will Ferrell forever, right? For a reason.
Yeah. So. Yeah, exactly. So, it drops on the 12th of August.
12th of August. I had Scott, actually, I should do this. So one of the questions that I keep getting that I'm always a little like, I want to make sure I get because everyone's like, where is it dropping? So Scott's like, he said it's going to be available to rent or purchase on all the major platforms: Amazon Prime, Apple TV, iTunes, Google Play, Fandango Now, YouTube Movies, Dish Network, Dish Digital. It can be seen on local cable and satellite providers. So that's the verbiage that Scott gave me. He didn't say read it on Kevin's podcast, but I did ask him specifically because another interview asked that, like a written interview, and I was like, I don't want to just say it's available. Like, give me something. Like, give me specific. So I'll start posting that too. Are you going to do a review, Kevin? You think, or what are you thinking?
Oh yeah, no, I've done the review. Yeah,
you've done the review.
Yeah. So right. the review will, like, I always drop the review and then the interview in the podcast. So that will be dropping just before the 12th.
Well, you're very intelligent and thoughtful, and I'm excited to hear you. I'm excited to hear or read your review. How's the review going to be?
Audio and video.
Okay, so I'm excited. So yeah, let's make sure we follow each other on social media too, so you can tag me or vice vice versa or whatever. So I
Mm, mm.
don't know if I follow you or not. We'll find out. I'll
Yeah.
make sure we do that though. I'm
Yeah.
curious. I normally I'm like, I don't want to see reviews. For this one, I want to see reviews. I'm afraid. Like actually, as we're saying this, I'm getting like this really nervous in the pit of my stomach. Not that I'm worried about what you're going to say, but like there's a level of excitement and yeah, what's Kevin going to say? So I'm excited to see how that's going to play out. So yeah, let's make sure that and I'll comment on it too. Like I love you, Kevin. Or how
Oh, that's actually perfect. How can people keep track of everything you're doing?
I'm on Facebook just under Michael Caissie, Caissie, and then Instagram is the same thing. There's a dot in between the two of them, so it's Michael dot Caissie. That's the two things. I used to be on Twitter, which is now X, and there was too much. It was too much negativity. I just was like, I can't. Found myself getting incredibly angry all the time when I was on. I don't need that in my life. So I just focus on those two things mostly, and I do try and interact. It's weird, like messages that if I'm not following the person or like sometimes it gets lost in the spam, but I try and get that as well. But yeah, that's I kind of try and stay active on that. I'm not a huge. I don't post every day, all that stuff. But as films come out, I do think it's the best place to try and interact. And yeah, I'll be honest. Like I said, I'll search Tears in Hell, and if someone's posted something about it, I try and thank them and interact because I think that's important. Someone's taken the time to do that. So I have been doing that. I have been spending more time on social media to support those that are helping support myself in the film. So it makes sense to me to do that. And yeah, but anyone that wants to reach out on there, hopefully it's to say nice stuff, but we'll see.
I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it will be. Like the film legitimately is just great.
Oh,
Fantastic performances. It just works. So yeah, I'm sure, anyone that loves those true crime documentaries, things like Dexter, just all of that jazz are going to watch this and be like, oh, this is so good.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for your time, Kevin. And I would love to do it again on future films or whatever you got going on. Keep me posted. I really enjoyed our chat.
Yeah, man, this has been great. So yeah, as soon as final draft drops into the world or your next project, whatever, let me know and we will we'll have another great conversation.
All right, Kevin. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And yes, as soon as anything else comes out, let's do it.
Tremendous. So people mark it down in the calendar, the 12th of August. No Tears in Hell will be out in the world. Go and check it out. It's it's not a feel-good film, but it's a well done film, and you will be locked in all the way through. So yeah, go check out No Tears in Hell. Michael, thank you so much for your time, man.
Likewise. Thank you, Kevin. Have a great rest of your day or night. I don't even know what time zone you're in, but
It is just coming up to 8:30 now.
Okay. All right. It's a little afternoon for me here, so 12:30. So I'm on the Pacific Standard Time. So we'll enjoy your evening then. Thank you again for your time. And yeah, let's do it again, Kevin. And I'm looking forward to your review and for this.
Awesome, man. I appreciate that.
Talk soon. Thank you.
All right. Bye.